Part 36. Fringe Artists in the Entertainment Industry. Author, Chizu Xiaomao. Chapter 364. Chapter 352-351. Listen to your sister. Any job in this world will become boring after a long time. Chen Lian's tour exhibition became boring after doing too much, and the exhibition in Los Angeles ended without any disturbance. Christmas has officially arrived. Chen Lian has never liked celebrating holidays other than the Spring Festival, let alone Christmas. However, Jifa had the habit of celebrating Christmas, and Chen Lian and Bai Qing also spent it together. Chen Lian has also learned about some of the customs of Christmas. Christmas in each country is different. For example, Finland melts tin and predicts the shape according to its shape, Australia has a beach barbecue, and France attends midnight mass and has an ice cream party with relatives. Tolerance of past offenses. None of Jifa's relatives are in the United States, and she has no one to forgive her after mass. This Christmas always feels like something is missing for her. Fortunately, Chen Lian and Bai Qing were with us, which added a different feeling to this Christmas. Chen Lian also prepared a Christmas gift for Jifa, which was an oil painting that Chen Lian had painted for a long time. Chen Lian brought the wrapped oil painting to Jifa and said, "It's a pity that your socks are too small, otherwise I would secretly stuff them into your socks." "Is it a painting?" Jifa took it over in surprise. Just as he was about to open it, Chen Lian stopped him. "How can you open a gift in person? You can go back and open it secretly at night." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he deliberately coughed and winked secretly at Jifa. Bai Qing was still watching. If she opened it and saw the contents of the painting, it would be over. Jifa immediately understood and pretended to complain, "Why can't my gift be opened? You Chinese are so troublesome." Although Jifa complained on his lips, he was very happy in his heart, but not everyone could receive Chen Lian's paintings. Jifa had always said that Chen Lian was too generous to give away paintings to women, but now that he received the oil paintings specially painted by Chen Lian for her, he just hated Chen Lian for being too stingy. "Why not send 8 out of 10 paintings? It's all money. If you behave well, I won't bother you about secretly going out to paint this time." Jifa accepted the gift with a smile. Speaking of this, Jifa pulled Chen Lian and told him, "If you go out to paint again, you must be careful so that you don't get discovered." In the past 2 days, some people have guessed that Chen Lian is anonymous, and even contacted Jifa specifically to inquire about the information. This is all driven by capital's pursuit of profit. However, these people's idea is that anonymous must not be exposed. Exposure will lose the biggest highlight. Overtly and secretly, Jifa hinted that they would have time to talk about anonymous together. These people are really unwilling to let go of any opportunity to make money. If anonymous had the capital to hype and promote it, it would definitely be more popular than Chen Lian himself. Chen Lian's current works, with the help of Jifa, cost less than $3 million at most. Someone has already offered high prices for the anonymous graffiti, and there is no one to promote it. Chen Lian raised his voice and said in Jifa's ear, "From now on, we can paint whatever we want. The more we despise capital, the more capital likes it. Will one person earn 2 shares in the future?" Jifa rolled her eyes at him and warned, "You should be careful and don't overdo it." Chen Lian agreed nonchalantly, looked at Bai Qing and asked, "Where is the gift you prepared for Jifa?" Bai Qing smiled and handed Jifa a box, but it was not an oil painting, but a beautiful stone. She used a brush to outline beautiful patterns on the stone. "I've been picking this for a long time. I hope you like it." Jifa took the stone and smiled and whispered in Bai Qing's ear, "Do you want to say that your heart is as hard as a stone? But I won't give up." Bai Qing glanced at Chen Lian, who was running to prepare a big meal, secretly took a photo of Jifa and said, "You must give up on this idea." Jifa chuckled. It was not that she had nothing to do, but it would expose the relationship between herself and Chen Lian, which would not be good for the future cooperation of the three of them. The team is the most important thing. After spending Christmas with Jifa, Chen Lian and the others also took a short break, and the tour was temporarily suspended. The United States is on holiday across the board, even the government is on holiday, and there is nowhere to hold an exhibition, not to mention that the next stop is Canada. Chen Lian calculated the time and found that it would be more than 10 days before the next launch, so he thought about returning to China to finish some work in advance. Leixin Electronics already has a preliminary design plan for MP3, and VCD advertisements must also be prepared in advance. There are still many things to do before the year. After the news that Chen Lian wanted to return to China spread among the team, several senior chefs originally wanted to go back with him, but they gave up the idea of returning to China for New Year's Day as soon as they heard that a round trip for one person cost tens of thousands. This air ticket is too expensive. It's a money grab. I won't make so much money in a few years. That's right, you can buy as many things as you want with that much money. It's better to go with the army and you can still get reimbursed. Several old comrades left Chen Lian's room muttering and cursing, looking cute in disgust at the expensive air tickets. Chen Lian doesn't really want them to travel back and forth. Even though flying is not very difficult, many people have to change trains when they arrive in China. It's better to spend New Year's Day in the United States than to spend New Year's Day in the United States. However, Chen Lian still brought one person back to China, and that was his assistant. During this period, Chen Lian had no time to take care of Lu Tao. She took care of the entire team for Chen Lian and grew a lot. On the plane back home, Chen Lian yawned and fell asleep, while Lu Tao sat aside and hesitated to speak. Chen Lian glanced at her and said, "If you have anything to say, tell me quickly, or I'm going to sleep." After hearing Chen Lian's words, Lu Tao plucked up the courage and said, "Teacher Chen, I want to be transferred to another position. I'm too stupid to be your assistant." When Chen Lian heard this, he glanced at Lu Tao in surprise, then he hummed and put on a blindfold to sleep. Lu Tao was suddenly at a loss. "Well, are you angry, or have you agreed? Can't you bosses speak clearly?" Lu Tao looked at Chen Lian, who fell asleep after putting on the blindfold for a while, and suddenly regretted that he had offered to be transferred. Teacher Chen must be very disappointed with himself. Will he be fired because of this? Thinking of his high salary and good treatment, Lu Tao still couldn't bear to part with this job. The treatment is so good. When I go abroad, I can fly first class with my boss, stay in 5-star hotels, and be reimbursed for meals and shopping. Where can I find such a fairy job? Lu Tao really wants to give himself a slap in the face now. Why should he be transferred to another position? Why are he pretending to be pitiful? You might as well hit yourself in the foot by throwing a stone. Lu Tao leaned on his seat depressedly, thinking about what he should do after returning to China. Should I go to Li Dabai to beg for mercy? Forget it, it would be nice if I don't get scolded, and I still beg for mercy. Li Dabai was extremely disappointed with his performance in London and would definitely be scolded to death when he went back. Without thinking about it anymore, Lu Tao took a small blanket and covered his head and followed Chen Lian's example to sleep. The plane landed in Beijing more than 10 hours later. Chen Lian got off the plane, tightened his coat, and exhaled slowly. It's really cold in Beijing. The weather has not warmed up significantly after the heavy snowfall. It's a pity that we didn't get to see the heavy snowfall in Beijing this year. When Chen Lian came out of the airport, he saw several familiar figures. Although they were all wrapped up tightly, they looked too strange. Moreover, her outstanding figure and temperament are even more eye-catching when she is so tightly wrapped. Chen Lian glanced at Lu Tao, who felt guilty. Without asking, he knew that it was she who told Li Dabai. Li Dabai then told Gong Li, Chen Myron, and an inconspicuous little Mr. Zhou. Chen Lian looked around and saw a few paparazzi hiding in the crowd, and suddenly felt a headache. Why can't these people wait at home and come here to pick up the plane? The key is who Chen Lian goes with. All of them know that men who make things difficult for them are not considerate at all. Chen Lian looked sideways at Lu Tao and asked, "Whose car do you think I should get in?" "How about we take a taxi ourselves?" Lu Tao asked tentatively. Now he wants to die. Why has he done another wrong thing? If he had known it, he would not have told Li Dabai. Chen Lian nodded and said, "Then it's up to you. Go and tell them I'll take a taxi, and you can take them away." "Lu Tao, I don't dare. I will be resented. I don't dare to do such a thing." It's a pity that Chen Lian didn't show any sympathy for her, so he ignored Lu Tao's shrinking eyes and urged her to go quickly. Lu Tao ran over resignedly, said something to them with a smile uglier than crying, and then was surrounded. The paparazzi who were about to secretly take pictures took pictures with their cameras, but they didn't see Chen Lian. They were still wondering. Could it be that Chen Lian was still touring the exhibition and hadn't come back yet? Lu Tao stood like a little white rabbit among a group of powerful women, clasping his hands and saying sorry and please. Li Dabai saw Chen Lian from a distance, and probably understood what he was thinking, so he didn't say anything. She had already told Gong Li and Chen Miran about Chen Lian's return to China. After all, they were the two empresses of the East and West palaces. But Mr. Zhou was with Gong Li at the time, so he came with him. Otherwise, why would so many people come at once? It's just that I don't know who these paparazzi came here with, so I couldn't pick him up at the airport and had to be scolded by Chen Lian. Lu Tao didn't know what he said. Anyway, everyone followed him, but he still couldn't help but look back, but Chen Lian had already disappeared at the airport. Chen Lian has now taken a taxi to the company. He originally wanted to go directly to Shenzhen, but Party A and Party B are going to release the movie, and Huo Jiankai and Jia Zhang are waiting for him to discuss participating in the film festival. The goal is the Berlin International Film Festival in 2 months. Singer has already been released, so I can only attend the screening to see if any film producers will buy it. Xiao Wu is still covering up and can participate in the competition selection, but both of them have no experience and do not understand many things. Chen Lian returned to the capital this time for these few things. After finishing his work, he would fly directly to Yangcheng to settle the MP3 matter and continue his overseas tour. "I'm so busy," Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh and walked into the company. Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai didn't make an appointment today. They came to the company now to deal with other matters. Chen Lian sat in Chen Miran's office and took a brief look at the company's recent situation. Huanzu has now sold the first round of rights. I don't know if it will be popular. After all, Xiaoenzi and Zai Wei have changed their roles. Whether Chen Zihan and Fan Bingbing can seize such a good opportunity and become an instant hit depends on them. If they don't become popular, it will be their fate. As for Zhang Quilai, he has just finished filming the second part of Kangxi. He has been working on it for several months, and he doesn't know why the filming is so slow. The only thing he was thankful for was that he didn't go back to the company to complain and ask for additional investment. Chen Lian didn't bother to argue with him about these things. As soon as Chen Lian finished reading this, the office door was pushed open. Gong Li took the lead and walked in, looking around as if this was her office. Chen Lian raised his head and glanced, then glanced sideways behind her. He found that she was alone and asked curiously, "Why are you the only one? Where are your sisters?" Gong Li walked up to Chen Lian and slapped him without saying a word. Fortunately, Chen Lian was wearing thicker clothes and it didn't hurt if he slapped him on the body. "Why are you so courageous? You are not afraid that something will happen," Gong Li said angrily and distressedly. Chen Lian took Gong Li's hand and said, "I'm fine. I can't watch those students being beaten." Chen Lian didn't tell Gong Li and the others that he was an anonymous, and they didn't know that Chen Lian was behind the whole thing. I don't know how to worry if I tell you. So Gong Li is just angry at Chen Lian for showing off. If she knew everything, she would definitely be worried to death and would never let Chen Lian go abroad in the future. Gong Li looked at the wound on Chen Lian's brow bone that was still not healed, and asked distressedly, "Does the wound still hurt?" "It's okay, it's a minor injury. It'll be fine in a few days. You are the only one who is so good. You have to show off and fight with the police, right?" Gong Li complained, but she carefully inspected the wound, then tapped Chen Lian's forehead and said, "Fortunately there is no scar, otherwise you would be so ugly. You don't want me anymore when you become ugly?" "A daughter can't live without a father," Chen Lian said with a playful smile, and then asked, "Why are you alone? Where are Chen Myron and the others?" Gong Li raised her eyebrows and said, "I'm not here. I'll take you there. Don't stay in the company. Come with me." "Where to go?" Chen Lian asked confused. Gong Li hugged her chest and looked at Chen Lian with a half smile and said, "Go home. I can't criticize you in the company. You don't think this matter will be revealed so easily. Anyway, your injuries are healed, it's too late to pretend to be pitiful." "Chen Lian, is it too late to pretend to have a headache now?" Gong Li looked at the stupid Chen Lian and couldn't help but lightly tapped his brow bone and said, "But it doesn't look like the wound has completely healed yet." Chen Lian's eyes lit up and he immediately covered his head and said, "Good sister, you are the best to me. I feel a headache now. Please take me to the hospital." "Aren't you going to see them?" "I want to go to the hospital." "You don't need to go to the hospital, but you can go to my place to hide." Okay. Just listen to my sister. It's my birthday today, so allow me to be lazy and I'll post more essays in the group tomorrow. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 365. Chapter 353-352. Who can control Chen Lian? It was extremely cold in the capital in the late winter, but Chen Lian felt that his heart was even colder. "The thought of being criticized soon made my heart go cold." As for following Gong Li to escape the criticism, Chen Lian gave up after thinking about it for a while. You can't avoid this kind of thing, it will happen to you sooner or later, so you might as well face it now. Are you really ready to go? Aren't you afraid that they will force you to go to the palace? Gong Li crossed her arms and looked at Chen Lian and asked. Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, "There is nothing to be afraid of. No one can compare to my palace." Hearing Chen Lian's words, Gong Li couldn't help frowning and asked coldly, "I can't force you." Chen Lian glanced at Gong Li's cold face and said bravely, "No. No one can stop me from pursuing art." Gong Li was so angry with Chen Lian that she pinched the soft flesh around Chen Lian's waist and said, "You're still squealing. It hurts, it hurts. Deserve it?" More than 10 minutes later, Chen Lian sat in the car and looked at Gong Li, who was still angry. He felt that she was so cute like this. She didn't have the domineering power of Emperor Gong, but she looked like an angry little daughter-in-law. Chen Lian was so happy that he couldn't help but reach out and poke Gong Li's face. Gong Li rolled her eyes at Chen Lian and slapped his fingers off. "Sister, you are so cute." Chen Lian shamelessly hugged Gong Li's waist, like a coquettish little puppy. Li Wan, who was sitting in the front driving, couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. She, the boss, was too shameless to notice. Gong Li was angry and helpless towards Chen Lian. She couldn't push him away and could only let him hug her. "You can still laugh now, let's see what you do later." Chen Lian's hand was in Gong Li's coat, and he got into the close-fitting sweater dishonestly. He said fearlessly, "Just do whatever you have to do. I'm busy now and don't have time to take care of these things. You're too busy picking up girls and too busy being in the limelight, right?" Gong Li snorted angrily, but her face slowly turned red. She gasped slightly and pressed Chen Lian's hand and said, "It's a bit formal. There are still people here." Chen Lian made a sound and took out his hand, touching his chin and thinking about what this episode meant tonight. Li Dabai, Chen Myron, Mr. Zhou, and Gong Li, what do these four girls want to do? Chen Lian turned to look at Gong Li, unable to tell what she was thinking. In the end, he could only give up thinking, leaned on Gong Li and said, "Sister, I'm so tired, let me take a nap." Gong Li looked at Chen Lian's sleeping face and couldn't help but sigh. Who can control Chen Lian now? He has money, status, and a prosperous career, and there is no shortage of women around him who want to get close to him. How can he be controlled by these few? The worst thing is to break up. Gong Li's eyes darkened slightly. I guess Chen Lian wouldn't care if they broke up. His personality is not that of someone who would beg you not to leave. If Chen Lian had a calm personality, he wouldn't have caused so many things. This is his nature. As Chen Lian himself said, no one can stop him from pursuing art. Gong Li thought about it for a while and then thought about it lazily. Didn't she think about it from the beginning? If she didn't think about it for a long time, she would take her children abroad when she no longer liked him. Soon the car arrived at Chen Myron's villa. Chen Lian got out of the car with a yawn, without any intention of going to the execution ground, as if he just went home to eat. Gong Li really admires Chen Lian's mentality now. She really doesn't know whether he knows it or doesn't care at all. Several women who had been waiting in the villa saw through the window that Chen Lian got out of the car and stretched comfortably. They felt inexplicably relieved. It seemed that he was fine. However, seeing Chen Lian not nervous at all, Chen Myron felt an inexplicable anger rising in her heart. I'm worried to death, but you're quite happy. Don't you know everyone is worried about you? When Chen Lian opened the door and came in, several women looked at him with straight faces. Chen Lian didn't seem to feel anything and calmly changed his shoes and took off his coat. I'm back. Chen Lian was the first to say hello, and then shouted to Li Dabai, "Dabai, pour me a cup of coffee, I'm too sleepy." Li Dabai subconsciously wanted to stand up to pour water, but was held down by Chen Myron. Chen Lian couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, stared at Li Dabai, then smiled and went to the kitchen to pour coffee. Li Dabai was frightened by the look in Chen Lian's eyes just now. He felt that he was going to be in bad luck, and his initial aura suddenly disappeared. Gong Li walked in at this time and sat on the single sofa next to her without saying a word, as if she was an outsider. She didn't respond at all to the inquiring look that Chen Myron threw her way. Just as Chen Myron was about to ask what was going on with Chen Lian and why he was so fearless, she heard Chen Lian's voice coming from behind. "Is my son upstairs?" Chen Lian took a sip of his coffee and went straight upstairs without even looking at the women in the living room. Chen Myron looked at Chen Lian's back and was stunned for a moment, and several other women were also a little surprised. Li Dabai kept thinking that he was finished, while Master Zhou was filled with doubts. When did Chen Lian and Chen Myron have a son? Why don't you know? Gong Li couldn't help but chuckle. She leaned on the sofa and closed her eyes to rest. Go ahead and fight. She really thought she could control Chen Lian. If Chen Lian was that kind of person, things wouldn't develop like this. Gong Li couldn't help but think that if Chen Lian could really be manipulated, what would have happened to you people? She and Chen Lian would have been married and lived together long ago. Chen Lian came upstairs and looked at his chubby son, who was babbling at the little bell on the cradle bed, and happily picked him up and coaxed him. I haven't seen my son for so long, and I've been thinking about it. Chen Lian was having fun holding his chubby son, but the women downstairs had big heads. Li Dabai couldn't help but said first, "Let me go see Teacher Chen, he can't make coffee well." Li Dabai made a lame excuse and was about to go upstairs, but was held down by Myron Chen. Don't worry yet. Chen Myron turned to look at Gong Li and asked, "What did you say to him on the way?" Gong Li opened her eyes, glanced at her and said, I didn't say anything, he slept all the way. Chen Myren frowned, obviously not believing it, but Gong Li had already closed her eyes and had no intention of continuing to explain. When Chen Myren saw that Gong Li had no hope, Li Dabai was so frightened by Chen Lian's look that he wanted to surrender, so he turned his attention to Mr. Zhou. Mr. Zhou is a small figure sitting on the sofa hugging a pillow and saying nothing. She is not here to force Chen Lian to have a baby, she is just worried about him. Now she is thinking about when Chen Lian will have a son, and whether she should also marry him. Chen Lian wants a son. Seeing that these women were all unreliable, Chen Myren felt a little panicked and couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean?" There was only silence in response to Chen Myren. Everyone has different thoughts. Who would be of the same mind as his competitors? Chen Myren looked at them without saying anything, and stood up and walked upstairs. "You're all pretending to be dead, right? Then I'll do it myself." Beauty Chen ran upstairs and saw Chen Lian holding her son up and running wildly in the corridor. The chubby son sat on Chen Lian's shoulder and smiled happily, his two short hands flapping back and forth on Chen Lian's head. Seeing this scene, Chen Myren suddenly stopped. She used to think about using her children to tie up Chen Lian, but now she realized that it was not Chen Lian who was tied up but herself. Chen Lian also saw Beauty Chen. He held up his giggling son and said, "Mom is here. Do you want to play with Mom?" "Hey," the silly son's little hand grabbed Chen Lian's hair and turned in one direction as if he was riding a horse. Chen Lian immediately followed him and said, "Okay, I won't play with Mom. Let's go and watch the flowers on the balcony." Chen Myren watched Chen Lian carrying her son into the bedroom, then silently turned around and went downstairs. There were so many things I wanted to say in my heart, but I couldn't say them out at that moment. In fact, Chen Lian was not afraid at all. He knew these women too well, and he would definitely not force them to have a baby. At least, they couldn't force them together with a few people. As for accusing themselves of being scumbags, there's no need to worry about it. They were already scumbags when they first met them. Chen Lian has never promised to coax anyone. The only thing he failed to do after he promised was to promise Chen Myren to travel to the United States to get married and get a commemorative wedding certificate. But that was also because of delays due to other matters, not that Chen Lian deliberately avoided it. At most, I wanted to take advantage of my injury in London to control myself and make myself more honest. Chen Lian really wanted to settle down for a while. He had too many good friends, and it was a worry not to be able to take care of them. Chen Lian played with the child upstairs for a while, and the fat boy became sleepy. After coaxing him to sleep, Chen Lian went downstairs. "Now it's time to go see what they are doing. Whatever you want to say, I'll say it all at once tonight to avoid any fuss later." However, even though Chen Lian had envisioned many possibilities for the scene downstairs, he never expected it to be like this. Several women are cooking in the kitchen. Can you believe it? Chen Lian rubbed his eyes, and after making sure he saw it correctly, he waved to Li Dabai, who had been peeking at him. Li Dabai had been waiting for Chen Lian's call for a long time. When he saw Chen Lian waving to him, he ran over immediately. "Teacher Chen, do you want some coffee? I'll make you a cup now." Li Dabai giggled, trying to look silly and sweet so that Chen Lian wouldn't give her a headache. Chen Lian frowned and suddenly remembered that she had just asked Li Dabai to pour him coffee but she didn't move. He raised his hand and gave her a headache. "I haven't seen you brave enough for a few days and you don't listen to me anymore." Li Dabai pursed his lips and glanced at Myren aggrievedly, his big eyes full of innocence. Chen Lian didn't bother to argue with her. He raised his chin and asked, "What's going on now?" "I'll cook for you to catch the wind," Li Dabai said blankly. Chen Lian groaned and looked at the three women in the kitchen, a little unsure of the current situation. "What did you want to do when you got together here in the first place?" Chen Lian looked at Li Dabai deliberately with a straight face. Li Dabai timidly reached out and grabbed Chen Lian's clothes and said, "I'm just worried about you. I want to see if you are okay." Gone. Gone. Chen Myron in the kitchen watched what Chen Lian and Li Dabai were talking about, and couldn't help but sigh. Dabai was usually very smart in the company, but when he was in front of Chen Lian, he turned into a big white rabbit. But thinking about why she was not like this, Chen Myron couldn't help but smile. Mr. Zhou didn't like Chen Myron very much. He glanced at her and asked, "How old is your son?" "It will be a week soon," Chen Myron replied without raising her head. Mr. Zhou frowned, stopped chopping vegetables, looked at her and asked, "Did you and Lian discuss this?" No, Chen Myron wanted to say yes, but then she changed her words. Mr. Zhou nodded, and she guessed that Chen Myron wanted to secretly conceive the child, and wanted to completely tie Chen Lian to death, but it seemed that she had failed now. Mr. Zhou felt that Chen Myron was too whimsical. How could someone like Chen Lian settle down? But having a child seems to be a good idea. Do you want to have one with Chen Lian? Mr. Zhou gave up this plan after thinking for a while. He and Chen Lian were still young, so they should be busy with their careers first. After a while, Gong Li and the others came out with the food. They looked at Chen Lian, who was reading the newspaper, and shouted, "Lian, come over for dinner." Chen Lian closed the newspaper and took a sip of coffee before standing up and walking over. His posture was like that of a master in the old society, which made Gong Li glare at him. Chen Lian pretended not to see it and sat directly at the head of the table to wait for the meal. Thinking about how magical the current situation was, Chen Lian suddenly felt that his initial attitude of not hiding or hiding things might have been right. They had known about each other's existence for a long time. Although they didn't usually meet or bump into each other, the acceptance in their hearts had long been filled up invisibly. If this happened in the future, Chen Lian would probably be stunned by the little fairy. Chen Lian felt a little lucky. He picked up his chopsticks and looked at the four women and said, "Eat." The four women looked at each other, and then Myron suddenly burst out laughing. Chen Lian looked at her strangely and asked, "Why are you laughing?" Chen Myron covered her mouth and was still laughing. She looked at Chen Lian and said, "You are really like the master in the Red Lantern, but who among us is the eldest wife and who is the fourth wife?" The other three women also turned to look at Chen Lian, as if waiting for him to sort out their order. Chen Lian coughed and said, "Feudal dregs. Eat and sleep after eating. I thought you were so thick-skinned, haha. Hey, sleep after dinner? Who will you sleep with?" Chen Lian put down his bowls and chopsticks, picked up his wine glass and said, "Whoever drinks more will sleep with him." Gong Li glared at Chen Lian angrily and said, "Put away your foxtail, don't think I don't know what you are thinking." Mr. Zhou bit his chopsticks and glanced at Gong Li secretly, as if he was remembering the absurdity of filming in Suzhou. But at that time there were 3 people, but today there are 5 people. So ashamed. Li Dabai also had the same experience. He drank in silence, but felt some inexplicable expectations in his heart. "Aren't you awesome? You never have fun every time you say it. I can't believe that 4 of them together can't defeat you." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 366. Chapter 354-353. Unexpected surprise. In the noisy restaurant, the dishes on the table were in a mess, and 4 or 5 red wine bottles were poured on the table. The 4 women who were having fun were crying and laughing, singing and cursing while pointing at Chen Lian's nose. Or just hug each other and cry, calling Chen Lian a scumbag together. Chen Lian was sitting at the front seat, drinking and pretending he didn't hear anything. He just scolded him, since he wouldn't lose a piece of meat anyway. However, the four girls drank so much that they are talking loudly now. If they drink any more, they will probably have to drink to pieces. It would be bad if you drank the fragment. What an important day tonight is, you must remember it firmly. Chen Lian stood up, took the half bottle of wine from Chen Myron's hand, and then walked upstairs with her in his arms. Gong Li looked at Chen Lian in a daze as she hugged Chen Myron and suddenly became unhappy. She muttered that she was not allowed to hug her, but only herself. Chen Lian looked at the confused Gong Li and coaxed, "Don't worry, I'll hug you right away. No one can escape tonight. Let you hold a criticism meeting. Now it's in my hands. Turn those two words over and read them to me." After Chen Lian carried Chen Myron upstairs, he ran down and picked up Gong Li, then Mr. Zhou and finally Li Dabai. When Chen Lian looked at the 2-meter-long bed, he always felt it was a little too small. He would buy a bigger house later and make an extra-large bed. Boss BA wakes up in a big bed of 50,000 square kilometers every day. The four women who were still crying and shouting downstairs were now lying on the bed silently, as if they were all asleep. Chen Lian looked at their slightly twitching eyelashes and couldn't help but clicked his tongue. They were all actors. Chen Lian hummed and turned around to get his little toy. He was so happy to have four people playing with him tonight. After a while, strange sounds came from the room. The night passed quickly. Chen Lian stepped on the carpet with his bare feet. He felt that the carpet was a little soft and he could hardly stand still. Anyway, I will never admit that my legs are a little weak. Seeing them still sleeping, Chen Lian was worried that they would beat him to death together when they woke up and recalled what happened last night, so he ran away immediately. It's impossible not to run away. Chen Lian's current fighting power can't even be considered as fighting against the five dregs. How can they be so moisturized as they are now? The red wine is indeed beautiful. Chen Lian didn't even bother to look at his son and ran away. After a while, Chen Lian came to Lu Xiaoli's place and happened to bump into Lu Xiaoli sending Qian to school. Lu Xiaoli looked at Chen Lian who suddenly appeared, surprise flashed in her eyes, but Sissy reacted faster, and a girl rushed towards Chen Lian and called her father. Chen Lian almost couldn't stand still, and his pale face frightened Lu Xiaoli. He immediately came over and pulled Qian and said, "Dad is injured and hasn't recovered yet. Be careful." Sissy looked at the injury on Chen Lian's forehead and said with distress and annoyance, "Dad, I'm sorry, are you okay? Does it hurt? Will it stop hurting if Sissy blows on you?" Chen Lian rubbed Sissy's head and said, "Dad is okay. Does Sissy want to go to school? Has she been good lately?" "Sissy is very good." Sissy raised her little face and smiled like the sun at 7 or 8 o'clock. Chen Lian couldn't help pinching her little face, then looked at Lu Xiaoli and said, "You can send Sissy to school first, and I'll go up and take a nap." Lu Xiaoli had a lot to say to Chen Lian, but now that Sissy had to go to school, she endured it for now. When Lu Xiaoli went to see Qian off, Chen Lian also went upstairs to sleep. When he woke up, it was already dark. Chen Lian stretched and felt refreshed. Just a little hungry, Chen Lian went downstairs and saw Qian sitting in the living room doing homework. He walked over and touched her head and asked, "Sissy, why don't you go to the study to do your homework?" Sissy immediately put down her pen and looked at Chen Lian and said, "This way Dad can see me when he comes down." "Sissy is so good." Chen Lian rubbed Sissy's little face and asked with a smile, "Where's Mom?" "Mom is in the dance studio." Sissy took Chen Lian's hand and pulled it toward the sofa. "Dad, tell me about your trip abroad. I haven't seen you during this time. Sissy misses you so much." "Okay, Dad, can you tell me about the two weird uncles you met in London?" Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham sneezed while watching the stripper dance in London. Jason Statham rubbed his nose, looked at Guy Ritchie and asked, "Are you ready for the post-production? You've almost spent 800,000 yuan. Guy Ritchie put a bill into the girl's hand, then turned back to Jason Statham and said, "The shots to be changed have just been finished, and the post-production has not been completed yet. Don't worry, I spent my own money here." "Well, just don't forget, Chen is a very good person," Jason Statham said. "I know, but he is also a madman, and he also knows Chinese Kung Fu." Jason Statham couldn't help but nodded. He also watched the news video of Chen Lian knocking down several JCS by himself, and was really shocked by Chen Lian's skill. Jason Statham looked at Guy Ritchie and suddenly said, "What do you think of making a Chinese Kung Fu movie? Chen's Kung Fu is so amazing." Jason Statham glanced around mid-sentence and whispered, "And he is anonymous, like a hero walking through the night. This is a very good subject." Guy Ritchie's eyes lit up, and he felt that if Chen Lian's London adaptation was filmed, it might become a classic like VC Kill Team. "I'll come up with a script when I get back tonight." "Why don't you go back now? It's only after 2 o'clock. "Oh, I just gave you a tip. I want to read enough books until it gets dark." Chen Lian may not have thought at this time that his first movie in Hollywood would be about beating someone, which inspired Guy Ritchie. Chen Lian is having dinner with Lu Xiaoli right now. After dinner, Chen Lian and Lu Xiaoli sat in the living room and watched boring TV series. Lu Xiaoli's mind was not on the TV at all. She looked at Chen Lian's profile and said, "A lot of people called you today." "I'll call back when I have time, don't worry." Chen Lian knew who called him without having to think about it. Lu Xiaoli said, "Oh," took Chen Lian's hand and put it on her belly and said, "I have prepared a surprise for you." Chen Lian raised his eyebrows, and his hand that was originally thinking of being dishonest immediately calmed down. "Yes." Lu Xiaoli hummed, leaned on Chen Lian's shoulder and said, "Will you always be good to us?" Of course. Chen Lian's tone softened and he gently stroked Lu Xiaoli and said, "This is really a surprise. Thank you. This is the best gift I have received this year." Lu Xiaoli turned her head and looked at Chen Lian and asked, "Do you like boys or girls?" Chen Lian joked, "I like them all, as long as they are mine." Lu Xiaoli patted Chen Lian angrily, snuggled into his arms and said, "I like my daughter." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Do you think our child will be cuter than Sissy?" Lu Xiaoli was silent for a moment and said, "My child is just as cute." "Haha, yes, Sissy is so cute." Chen Lian really doesn't have so much resistance to children now, and actually likes them. Maybe it's because I already have 2 children and experience the joy of an old father. Chen Lian is not very old now, but his mental age is still very old. Children don't have the same resistance as young people. I always think of the scene when I am old and surrounded by my children. If you have more children, you don't have to worry even if any of you wants to pull out his own oxygen tube. They can't all be treacherous. In that case, Chen Lian would just let them get rid of him. Why would he still be alive if he failed as a human being? Early the next morning, Chen Lian, who had been hiding all day, finally went to the company, but he was still a little uneasy. "I don't know if I will see 4 women each with an AK-47 waiting for me when I return to the company." After Chen Lian came to the company, he found that everything was normal and the expected scene did not appear, and he felt relieved. When she met Li Dabai, she reported work to herself as usual. Chen Lian probably understood what they meant, so he pretended that nothing happened. This is good, life is rarely confused. After listening to Li Dabai's report, Chen Lian asked, "Xiao Bai really wants to be transferred?" Li Dabai nodded and said, "If she doesn't apply, I will transfer her. She is not suitable to be an assistant." Chen Lian nodded and said, "What about the new assistant?" Li Dabai curled his lips when he heard this and said, "Didn't you already make a choice for yourself?" Chen Lian was stunned for a moment and asked, "When did I make a choice for myself?" "Li Shui, isn't Li Bingbing's sister the assistant you prepared for yourself?" I have already trained her and she is much better than Lu Tao Li. Dabai looked at Chen Lian, who was pretending to be stupid, and said directly. Li Shui. Chen Lian was startled for a moment, and then he remembered that he had mentioned to Li Bingbing that Li Shui could come to work in the company. However, in order to reserve talents for the company, he was not looking for an assistant for himself. Chen Lian knocked on the table and said, "Let her stay in the company. Isn't the company short of manpower? The company has already recruited people. They are all top students. After working for a while, they can fill the vacancies at the middle level. You can take the assistant you choose yourself." Chen Lian thought for a while that Li Shui could be his assistant, so he treated it as a training. He would learn more by keeping him with him than in the company, and then return him to the company later. Chen Lian directly called Li Bingbing and her sister Li Shui. It has been almost a month since Li Shui joined the company. This is the first time he has met his real boss. He is still a little nervous. During this period, he has seen Chen Lian on TV news. Now it feels strange to see him in person. Chen Lian first paid attention to Li Bingbing, and knowing that she had accepted a movie and had a few commercials to encourage her, he turned to look at Li Shui and said, "This is your sister, what position does she hold in the company now?" Hearing Chen Lian's words, Li Bingbing felt a little strange. He didn't know why he cared so much about his sister. Even though they have never met before, I specifically told myself that I could let Li Shui come to work in the company, and now I specifically come to talk to him. It feels like something is not right. Li Bingbing concealed her thoughts and said with a smile, "Now I am working as an assistant to Sister Dabai." Chen Lian smiled slightly and said, "I remember Dabai is 2 years younger than you. Why do you still call me sister?" "We all call it that," Li Bingbing said with a smile. Chen Lian nodded and got down to business and said, "My assistant has been transferred to another position now, and there is still a shortage of an assistant. Dabai recommended Li Shui, so I asked you to come and ask for your opinions." Hearing this, Li Shui couldn't suppress the smile on her lips. Her chance to rise to the top had come. Didn't Li Dabai work as an assistant to teacher Chen and then become the leader of the company? Then you can do it yourself. Thinking of Chen Lian's previous assistant, Li Shui couldn't help but cursed in his heart that he was an idiot for not seizing such a good opportunity. Li Bingbing was a little worried. Chen Lian's reputation was really not flattering. He hesitated and said, "Teacher Chen, my sister is still young. She should train in the company." Chen Lian nodded and said, "If you don't want to, then I do." Li Shui immediately spoke forcefully before Chen Lian could finish. Li Bingbing couldn't help frowning and turned to look at Li Shui. Before he could speak, he was interrupted by Li Shui. "Teacher Chen, I am willing to be your assistant. I want to learn more from you. I want to become an elite woman like Sister Dabai." Chen Lian looked at Li Shui, who was full of fighting spirit, smiled and said, "You are quite ambitious, which is good, but you should discuss it with your sister first, and then talk to me after you think about it." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he asked Li Bingbing and Li Shui to go out, and he strolled to Chen Myron's office. When Chen Lian came in, Chen Myron looked embarrassed for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. She coughed and said, "What are you doing at the company today?" Chen Lian sat across from Chen Myron and said, "2 things. One is about advertising. Likes and VCD's advertising needs to be redone. This time we need to jointly endorse it and find more stars. Take this opportunity to get acquainted with Sister Shifen, and get the star resources from Hong Kong and Taiwan. It is best to get all their mainland appointments, which can be regarded as adding some business to the company." Myron Chen hummed and then asked, "What about the second thing?" "The second thing is about the movie. Feng Xiaogang, Huo Jiankai, Jiazank, and I have an appointment here. You don't need to worry about this matter. You can handle the advertising matter." After hearing Chen Lian's words, Chen Myron couldn't help kicking him while doing her work and said, nothing has to do with me, right? Chen Lian held Mei Chen's ankle and said with a smile, isn't it all about you now? Beauty Chen blushed, and couldn't help but step on the foot that Chen Lian grabbed. She glanced at the office door with a blushing face, and then raised her other foot. The office should work well. Isn't that right, husband? Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 367. Chapter 355-354. Money is the first driving force. After not seeing Huo Jiankai for a long time, Chen Lian felt that he missed this old friend. The most important thing is that Huo Jiankai brought Chen Lian's Best Actor trophy. After the Golden Rooster Awards, Gong Li wanted to take it away from Chen Lian, but Huo Jiankai refused and insisted on handing it over to Chen Lian himself. Chen Lian looked at the trophy and couldn't help but clicked his tongue and said, it's quite nice. By the way, where's the bonus? Huo Jiankai, is it appropriate for us brothers to talk about money when we meet? It's appropriate. There is also a share of the movie. Please hurry up and get it back, Chen Lian said mercilessly, playing with the trophy for a while and putting it aside. Golden Rooster, this name is festive, I like it. Huo Jiankai sat opposite Chen Lian and said speechlessly, I know, I'll ask my wife to bring it to you later. Chen Lian curled his lips and said, my wife is older than my wife all the time. It's great to have a wife. After the two chatted for a while, Jia Zhang came, opened the office door, and said sheepishly, I'm late, I'm sorry. Chen Lian smiled and shook his head and said, it's okay. The time is just right. Let's talk about the film festival together. After Jia Zhang sat down, he looked at Chen Lian and asked, the film festival starts in February. Will you go with me then? Chen Lian shook his head and said, I don't have time to go there. You and Lao Huo can go together. The film festival is actually quite simple and the process is very transparent. But there is one thing you should pay attention to. When a film producer comes to you, don't be anxious. Sell. Jia Zhang nodded, looked at Chen Lian and asked, if you don't participate in the main competition, will it be difficult for the film to sell? The Berlin Film Festival is a big film trading market. Don't worry about this problem. Chen Lian turned to look at Huo Jiankai and said, Lao Huo, you don't have to worry. Although the singer does not meet the Berlin Film Festival's entry criteria, but there is no problem with screening, as long as there is an opportunity to screen, the film will not have to worry about selling. Huo Jiankai smiled and said, I'm not worried. Now that you are so famous, someone will definitely be willing to buy it. Chen Lian thought about it and it was true. The movie itself was good, and with Chen Lian starring in it, he really didn't have to worry about no one buying it in Europe. Jia Zhang also asked curiously, Junior, what was your situation in London before? It's nothing. Didn't the newspaper say it all? It's the same as what the newspaper said. Chen Lian smiled and didn't explain that much. Jia Zhang didn't want to ask any more questions. He chatted with Chen Lian for a while about participating in the Berlin Film Festival, and then decided on several film festivals to participate in. After all, the probability of winning a grand prize in Berlin is too small. If you participate in more film festivals, you will have more chances of winning, not to mention the bonus. Huo Jiankai is in the same situation. Although he cannot participate in the 3 major European film festivals, he can still participate in other film festivals. The singer has only won 1 award so far, and it was Chen Lian's Best Actor award. The movie itself has not won any awards yet. Huo Jiankai was also worried. With such a good film, he couldn't just mess around with it. More than half an hour later, Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai finished their chat. They looked at the time and said to them, you guys sit and chat for a while. I also want to meet director Feng Xiaogang. Don't leave at night and have a meal together. Huo Jiankai and Jia Zhang looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Okay, then you go and do your work. After Chen Lian left, Huo Jiankai couldn't help but say, Lian's standards for investing in film and television dramas are really unclear. They can also invest in commercial films, independent films, and even poor Yao dramas. Jia Zhang smiled and said, I can see that investing in artistic films and independent films is because you like them, and investing in commercial films and poor Yao dramas is to make money. It's really both hands. Huo Jiankai smiled, then remembered that neither his own movies nor Jia Zhang's movies had the ability to make money, and suddenly he could understand Chen Lian. How can we subsidize these investments without making money from other places? Huo Jiankai and Jia Zhang also want to make money in their hearts. They have both experienced the hard days of having no money. It is really difficult to make a movie and ask their grandfather and grandma to get investment. If Chen Lian hadn't helped them, they wouldn't have known how much effort it would have taken. Now they only have one thought: the movie must be sold at a good price. In another office, Feng Xiaogang was sitting on the sofa chatting with Chen Myron, and Su Ban was sitting next to him. Chen Lian pushed the door open and walked in. Feng Xiaogang stood up and said politely, Teacher Chen, long time no see. Director Feng, please take a seat. Chen Lian looked at Feng Xiaogang's cheerful expression and guessed that he must have been very happy these days. In a short period of time, the box office exceeded 10 million, which made him feel proud. Chen Lian looked at Feng Xiaogang and said with a smile, Director Feng, Party A and Party B are very successful. Your understanding of comedy movies is really good. Feng Xiaogang smiled and couldn't help but pat his leg. He had heard a lot of compliments in the past few days, but today was the happiest one. After all, the people who praise him are different. If ordinary people praise him, he will be happy for a while. What's more, many people have recently criticized him for making sketches instead of movies at all. Feng Xiaogang was happy and suffocating at the same time. What happened to commercial movies? Why should I say that what I shoot is a sketch? Movies that make money are good movies. Chen Lian and Feng Xiaogang said a few more polite words before getting down to business. They came to Feng Xiaogang today to poach someone. The company currently has no capable director and is in urgent need of a director to kick off the film production business. Director Feng, I wonder if you are interested in joining our company, Chen Lian said with a smile and handed over a cigar. Feng Xiaogang took it with both hands, hesitated and said, It's an honor for me, Mr. Chen, to invite me, but I can't help the factory's cultivation now that I'm gone. Chen Myron couldn't help but said at the side, Director Feng, the current situation in the factory is not good. It is inevitable that you will be constrained in doing things. If you come to our company, we will give you the greatest autonomy. Feng Xiaogang was actually very excited. Working in a factory had its benefits, but Chen Myron was right. The system would inevitably lead to constraints. If nothing else, it would be difficult to invest in movies. Don't look at this movie to make money. If you want to invest in the next movie, the factory still can't afford that much money. Who wants so many directors in the factory to ask for money? Chen Lian saw that Feng Xiaogang was hesitant and said, Director Feng, think carefully and don't rush. We have many friends and many paths. Even if we don't come to our company in the future, we can still continue to cooperate. After hearing what Chen Lian said, Chen Myron glanced at him and felt that he should persuade him again today, and he might be able to win. Chen Lian noticed the look in Chen Myron's eyes and secretly pressed his hand to her. At this time, Feng Xiaogang was very proud of himself. How could he change jobs casually? And since he can get a share of the box office this time, he may have other plans in mind, and he won't change jobs for a while. Chen Lian is now talking to Feng Xiaogang about changing jobs, just to grab a head start, and also to make him more proud. After being praised, his mentality will be inflated, and he will fall into trouble. When he ran into a wall in the factory and had difficulty distributing box office profits, he naturally understood the benefits of stepping outside the system. After Chen Lian and Feng Xiaogang chatted for a while, they sent him off. Chen Mei and Su Fan chatted happily and even made an appointment to go for a beauty treatment together next time. After they left, Chen Lian remembered that Feng Xiaogang didn't seem to be divorced. Is he and Su Fan now in an unclear stage? But there's nothing to say. This kind of thing is so normal in the industry. Isn't Chen Lian himself a standard scumbag? Not to mention the eldest brother, Chen Lian is still very self-aware. In the evening, Chen Zanan, Huo Jiankai and Jia Zhang had dinner and drank some wine together and then went home. I didn't go anywhere tonight, I didn't make an appointment with anyone, I just went home and had a good night's sleep. Early the next morning, Chen Lian flew directly to Yangcheng, and the MP3 matter had to be implemented as soon as possible. Chen Lian is quite concerned about this matter. This may be the most accessible electronic product in the 1990s besides VCD. The barriers to other electronic product industries are too high. Unless you assemble like VCD, there is no future. After Chen Lian landed in Yangcheng, he went directly to the factory. Now the scale of the factory is much larger than last year. The local support is great, and the treatment of large taxpayers is different. Chen Lian came to the conference room to meet with the R/U0026D team, and his head was spinning as they listened to a bunch of professional terms. However, Chen Lian respected them very much. After they talked for half an hour, he said, "That's very good, but I actually didn't understand what you said." As soon as Chen Lian's words came out, the conference room burst into laughter. A young technician joked, "Teacher Chen, we actually can't understand your artwork." Haha, after all, every other line is like a mountain. After Chen Lian joked, he said seriously, "But I have a few requirements. First, the size must be small, second, the memory must be large, and third, it must be able to connect to the computer to download songs directly." Several technicians frowned at the same time. The third requirement was easy to say, but the first two requirements were too difficult. They required not only small memory but also large memory. One technician asked in confusion, "Shouldn't we pursue sound quality? And the smaller the size, the memory will also be affected?" Chen Lian looked at him and said, "I'm not a technician. These issues are not what I should consider, but what you should consider. But don't worry, I will manage enough R/U0026D funds. Once the research and development is successful, I will also manage enough bonuses." Hearing what Chen Lian said, their frowns relaxed slightly, but they still said to Chen Lian, "If this is the case, we will have to spend a lot of time on storage research, and our current technical reserves cannot support it. Then expand the team and continue to recruit people. It is not difficult to make a music player, but it takes time and effort to make an epoch-making product." Chen Lian took out a design draft as he spoke and said, "This I designed the appearance of the product, and you design it according to this standard." Several technicians took the design and took a look at it, their eyes lit up slightly, but when they saw the display screen and circular buttons on it, they couldn't help but feel that the task was difficult. Chen Lian ignored them and directly took the design draft and told them his detailed design and requirements, from the button design to the material and color of the shell. After Chen Lian finished speaking, the technicians competed with Chen Lian again. They pointed at the design drawings and started arguing with Chen Lian that the size was too small and the buttons were unreasonable. Chen Lian almost understood all the nouns and data they said one by one. After listening to them for a long time, Chen Lian almost understood them. He sat there and nodded, and after they finished speaking, he knocked on the table and said, "I said, these problems are yours, not mine. We need to find ways to overcome them. We can't solve them without sufficient R/U0026D funds, that's your problem. An MP3 only has a few components. Can't you overcome these difficulties? After Chen Lian finished speaking, he turned to look at Jiao Linmuo, who had been smiling and saying nothing, and said, "Second uncle, the research and development of new products and logistics support are done well. If there are technical problems, just hire capable people. I don't believe in a small MP3 player can't do it." After saying that, Chen Lian stood up and looked at them and said, "We can't make computers, we can't make chips, can't we make a small MP3? Can we just assemble it and make a processing factory? If you just design a product randomly, how will you compete with foreign manufacturers in the future?" Chen Lian couldn't help but patted the table and said, "What I want is to amaze them with the first product. What I want is for the product to be successful in the global market, create an advantage. If you have difficulties in research and development, then go ahead and overcome them. Complain to me here and ask me to change the design. Then what else do I want you to do?" Chen Lian felt a little angry as he spoke, but he still suppressed his temper and said, "Samsung is also preparing to do this project now. If we can't guarantee that our first product will be ahead of them, how can we compete with them? Do we want to be a representative for others all our lives, factory?" Chen Lian said the last sentence while looking at Jiao Linmuo. Jiao Linmuo coughed awkwardly, feeling that his nephew had become more angry after going abroad. The project leaders, technicians, and researchers in the conference room all looked at Chen Lian and became silent. Chen Lian was right. They didn't want to just be a processing and assembly plant, especially those who were engaged in technology. Who didn't have a strong country? Dream. Although MP3 cannot make the country stronger, it cannot be inferior to others in everything. Teacher Chen. You are right. Overcome difficulties when there are difficulties, the technician who was joking with Chen Lian at the beginning said excitedly. At this time, everyone else in the office also said that they were committed to completing the mission. The morale was good and the military morale was available, but it was not enough. Chen Lian looked at them, opened his bag, and poured out a pile of banknotes on the table. The money is not much, only 200,000, but it is still hard to look away when piled together. Chen Lian pushed the pile of money into the middle of the table, looked at them and said, "These money are your bonuses. This is only half. When you finish, there will be more bonuses. Whoever makes the greatest contribution will be rewarded personally by me a car." As soon as Chen Lian finished speaking, the atmosphere in the conference room exploded. Everyone screamed, "Why do these people enter private companies? It's true that they have dreams and pursuits, but mostly for money." Looking at the researchers who were pumped one after another, Chen Lian felt that his morale was working. If he didn't stimulate it, where would he get the motivation? In the evening, Chen Lian and Jiao Linmuo were walking in the factory. The warm yellow light shone down, and the figures of the two people, an old man and a young man, looked harmonious under the street lights. But when you get closer, you can hear Jiao Linmuo cursing. "Did you scold me on purpose during the afternoon meeting? You're not a coward. Go back tonight and see if I break your legs." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 368. Chapter 356-355. Jifa, how many women do you know? The days are always busy. After Chen Lian spent money in the factory, he went into the laboratory and stayed for several days, just to boost morale for no other reason. After going there for 3 consecutive days, Chen Lian stopped going after feeling that his morale was good. It's annoying to go to other people's houses all the time, and I don't understand technology yet, so I just wander around blindly. After Chen Lian stayed in Yangcheng for another day, he set off for Canada. Jifa and Bai Qing were already waiting for him to arrive in Canada. The tour had only started 4 stops, and there were still several more stops to come. There is a lot of snow in Canada in winter, and the scenery is very beautiful. Chen Lian really likes this feeling of white snow. The cold air seems to cleanse the soul. Chen Lian was sniffling as he built a snowman in the park. Wang Zuxian was holding a carrot next to him, waiting to put a nose on the snowman. Wang Zuxian, wearing a white coat and a cashmere hat, squatted beside him and watched Chen Lian build a snowman, and said with a smile, "I have been dreaming about this day for a long time. Do you like snow very much? No wonder you are willing to come to Canada." Chen Lian patted the snowman's round head and said, "I leave the finishing touch to you." Wang Zuxian stood up immediately and inserted the carrot in her hand on the snowman's head, and a round and cute snowman appeared. Chen Lian resisted the urge to kick the snowman's head away. This was his favorite thing to do when he was a child. Chen Lian shook his legs, looked at Wang Zuxian and said, "I have been working hard alone in Tokyo during this time." Wang Zuxian shook her head and said, "It's not hard, it's just that some people don't make people worry." Chen Lian smiled and rubbed Wang Zuxian's head and said, "I won't worry you anymore, don't worry." Wang Zuxian rolled her eyes at him, straightened her hat and said, "I don't believe you." "Then look at my performance." Chen Lian put his arm around Wang Zuxian's shoulders and stepped on the snow, making a crunching sound. There was a sense of quiet beauty in this quiet park. But this feeling soon became dynamic. When Wang Zuxian walked to the tree, Chen Lian kicked the tree trunk. The snow fell suddenly, and Chen Lian put his arms around Wang Zuxian's waist and spun around in the snowflakes. Wang Zuxian screamed, but the smile on her face was particularly bright. She put her arms around Chen Lian's neck, feeling that all the good things in the world were not worth this moment. After Chen Lian hugged Wang Zuxian and spun her around a few times, he put her down and looked into her beautiful eyes and said, "You are so beautiful." Wang Zuxian gasped slightly, stood on tiptoes and kissed Chen Lian on the lips. In the quiet park, there was only the muffled sound of snowflakes falling on the branches. Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian hugged each other and quietly felt the beauty of this moment. The touring exhibition in Canada went very smoothly. Although Toronto is not an art capital, the cultural atmosphere is also very good. The Royal Ontario Museum is the fifth largest museum in North America, and its main collections are world culture and natural culture. Chen Lian's traditional culture exhibition fits the theme here very well. Whether it is tie-dyeing or reed painting and other crafts, they are all artistic inspirations obtained from nature. But the only bad thing is that the museum here has too many cultural relics stolen and smuggled from China. When Jifa negotiated with the museum, he was almost rejected. After all, the whole world knows how badly Chen Lian cursed people in London. Chen Lian didn't deliberately look for trouble. He just caught the shameless one and scolded him. He couldn't scold him all the time. After all, almost all well-known museums around the world collect a large number of Chinese cultural relics. Now newspapers and scholars in many places have begun to question the legitimacy of local museum collections. When Chen Lian was reading the newspaper in the morning, he also saw a scholar in Toronto raising questions in the Globe and Mail, Canada's largest circulation. This is the role of taking the lead. With the previous case in London, many people have begun to pay attention to this matter. The reporter from the Globe and Mail also wanted to interview Chen Lian and ask him his opinion on this matter, but Chen Lian did not have the chance to say it because Jifa stopped him from going. Chen Lian could only organize the exhibition honestly, but he met a very interesting person. A Chinese scholar who teaches at the University of Toronto is studying the different cultures of the two countries. One of his arguments involves cultural relics in museums. Chen Lian chatted with him for a while and felt that this person was quite interesting. He also said that he would publish his research results in a paper. Chen Lian was not interested in the thesis or anything else, but he was very interested in his desire to expose the legitimacy of the museum's cultural relics. After learning more about it, he even invited him to a meal. But that's all Chen Lian can do. After all, Jifa watches him every day, and even lets Wang Zuxian follow him every step of the way when he's not around. After eating, Chen Lian held Wang Zuxian's hand and walked on the streets of Toronto. Wang Zuxian was in a good mood. This was the first time she and Chen Lian walked on the street so openly. No need to pretend, just be yourself. Wang Zuxian walked briskly, looked at Chen Lian and asked, "Do you remember the last time we went shopping hand in hand?" Chen Lian recalled it and said, "Japan, but at that time we were pretending to be special forces." Haha, Wang Zuxian couldn't help laughing, shaking Chen Lian's hand and said, "I like the feeling now, if only I could stay like this." Chen Lian said with a smile, "In 2 years, you will no longer be popular and no one will pay attention to you. But don't feel dissatisfied by then." "No way, I've long wanted to quit the industry completely." Wang Zuxian looked at the gray sky and said, "I just want to live a simple life now." Chen Lian looked sideways at Wang Zuxian and said, "Want to retire completely? Then I will find someone to replace you regarding Tokyo." "No. I like what I'm doing now. It's not too busy, and it's very meaningful," Wang Zuxian said unhappily, holding Chen Lian's hand. "Okay, I'll listen to you. You can do whatever you want. What if I want to get married? I'll talk about it next time when I have time. I didn't bring my passport with me." "Fraud." Wang Zuxian cursed softly, pulled Chen Lian and walked towards the hotel. "There is an exhibition in the afternoon, why are we going back to the hotel now?" Chen Lian shouted from behind. Wang Zuxian looked back at Chen Lian and said, "I'm going to punish you. I'll trample you to death." Chen Lian touched his nose and muttered, "Isn't this a reward? Then can you wear white stockings?" "No." "What about the black one? How can you come up with so many demands?" "Okay, I'll take a step back, white cotton socks." "Go away, don't go back." The exhibition in Canada ended soon, and Wang Zuxian was reluctant to leave. Chen Lian's next stop was Australia, and she was going back to Wanwan. In the fully heated hotel, Wang Zuxian held the cotton socks with her thin fingers and gently pulled them off and threw them on the ground. She kicked Chen Lian in disgust, then hugged him and said, "Time flies so fast, I don't even want to go back to Beibei." Chen Lian rubbed Wang Zuxian's head and said, "When I finish my work, we will meet in Tokyo and go to the hot springs together." Wang Zuxian hummed, lying on Chen Lian's chest, her eyes fell on her white and tender feet, and played with them. Chen Lian flicked Wang Zuxian's head and said, "Woman, you are playing with fire." Wang Zuxian raised her head and said with a raised voice, "Ang, you have to leave tomorrow. If you don't play, you won't have a chance. You said this. Don't regret it? Come on, who is afraid of whom?" There was no words here all night, only the instinct of life moved according to the laws of nature. Early the next morning, Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian separated at the airport. One flew to Wanwan and the other to Australia. In the next half-month, Chen Lian went to Singapore after touring Australia, but the Singapore art exhibition was a failure. During the Great Depression, no one paid attention to art at all. Life was almost unsustainable, and no one cared about pursuing spiritual nourishment. The Singapore tour ended deserted, and Chen Lian and the others flew to South Korea again. However, South Korea is even more unbearable at this time. The country's economy has completely collapsed. Countless rich people have been harvested by Wall Street. Chen Lian can smell the smell of blood while walking on the streets of Seoul. When he was in Singapore, Chen Lian felt the horror of economic war, and now he felt even more deeply in Seoul. Thinking that he had taken advantage of them, Chen Lian felt that he could not forgive them. However, thinking that his account balance was growing rapidly every day, Chen Lian could only say sorry to them. Chen Lian and Bo Qing were sitting in a Chinese restaurant eating noodles with soybean paste. Listening to the boss's ramble about how business had been poor recently, they couldn't help but sympathize with him, and then ordered a few more dishes, enjoying their meal even more. Chen Lian is quite popular in South Korea. The friendship between China and South Korea depends on Japan. Chen Lian bombed Tokyo before, and the Korean media even promoted it at the time. Even in a recession, many tourists came to see Chen Lian's exhibition. Tickets are not expensive anyway, so it won't be a waste to see it. It can only be said that rich people, even if they are poor, are so skinny that a camel is bigger than a horse. After a leisurely day, Chen Lian took the team back to the hotel, where they stayed at a Samsung hotel. Samsung will be his opponent in the future, and Chen Lian living here feels like he took off his clothes and took a bath in the enemy's base camp. The restaurant in the Shilla Hotel was very good. Chen Lian accompanied Jifa to eat in the French restaurant and talked about the future arrangements. This tour will end after the next stop in Tokyo. These exhibits also include your previous award-winning works in Venice. I will help you operate them next year. Jifa paused, took a sip of red wine and continued, but it won't be sold for the time being. You no longer need to increase your worth through capital speculation again and again. Instead, the key is to keep your works from being leaked. Chen Lian nodded and said, "It's up to you to decide, but what do you plan to do with the works of Anonymous?" Jifa raised his eyebrows and said, "I will publish a picture album in the name of Anonymous to collect all your graffiti works, but you will also draw a few paintings for me, using Anonymous' creative style." Used for hype, Chen Lian asked back, frowning and said, "I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have anything to do with capital in this capacity. I just want to play for myself." Jifa had already guessed what Chen Lian was thinking, and said without surprise, "It's up to you, but not hyping it up is actually the biggest hype. Remember to take pictures of the paintings you draw in the future, and keep your works besides graffiti." Chen Lian hummed and didn't take it to heart. He was about to apply for freedom of movement in Korea when he heard a timid voice coming from behind him. "Sorry, I heard your conversation. Are you Anonymous?" Chen Lian and Jifa were stunned at the same time. When did there be an extra table of people in the restaurant? Chen Lian immediately looked back and saw a cute little girl looking at him apologetically with a baby face. Chen Lian said without changing his expression, "You heard wrong." Oh, the little girl blinked and looked at Chen Lian, as if to say, "You think I look like a fool?" Chen Lian felt a little helpless and said seriously, "You really heard wrong. Also, it is not polite to eavesdrop on others." Jifa was a little nervous at this time. He stood up and walked over to the little girl and said, "Hello, please don't eavesdrop on our conversation, don't make random assumptions, and don't spread false news to the outside world, otherwise you will be prosecuted." Chen Lian looked at the little girl who was at most a teenager, so he took La Jifa's hand and said, "Okay, I'm done eating, let's go back." However, Chen Lian still turned back to the little girl and said, "Nice to meet you. My name is Chen Lian, not Anonymous. Make sure you don't get it wrong, otherwise it will be really troublesome." The little girl wrinkled her nose and said "Oh" again with a puffed up face. Looking at the little girl who was at most 15 or 16 years old, Chen Lian was too lazy to say anything more, and he was not afraid that if she said it, who would believe it? Many media now speculate that Chen Lian is Anonymous, but the lack of evidence will only make the name Anonymous more mysterious. After Chen Lian and Jifa left, a woman in a black suit appeared next to the little girl and asked respectfully, "Miss, were they rude to you just now?" The little girl immediately shook her head and said, "No, by the way, is there a Chinese artist holding an art exhibition in Seoul recently?" The woman in black immediately replied, "I don't know, I will help you check it now." After saying that, the woman in black left. The little girl sat there with her chin in her hands, looking at Chen Lian's retreating back, with deep curiosity in her eyes. In the hotel elevator, Jifa looked at Chen Lian and said, "You are not allowed to talk about Anonymous outside in the future." Chen Lian nodded and said, "I know, fortunately I am a child today, otherwise I would be in trouble." Jifa couldn't help but rolled her eyes at Chen Lian and said, "I should have given you a warning just now. It would have been better to scare her. Once you see a woman, you will be soft-hearted." Chen Lian said angrily, It's just a child. You really think she is young? I think she is at least 18. Ji-fa snorted and retorted. Chen Lian said in disbelief, how is that possible? Ji-fa looked at Chen Lian with disdain and said, I'm better at judging women than you are. You've only seen a few women. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu Xiaomao. Chapter 369. Chapter 357-356. The domineering young lady. In the private box of the hotel's water bar, the warm yellow light looks particularly quiet, and the faint aroma makes people drowsy. The tall technician lady dressed in white gently covered Chen Lian with a towel and went out quietly. Chen Lian slept soundly with his eyes closed, but he didn't sleep for a while before Ji-fa and Bai Qing, who were finishing their skincare next door, ran over. Looking at Chen Lian, who was sleeping in a daze, Ji-fa walked over and said with a smile, how are you feeling? Chen Lian stretched his muscles and felt refreshed and said, it's very comfortable. Sure enough, men also need to take care of themselves. Ji-fa patted her face and suddenly asked curiously, did the masseur just provide other services? Chen Lian rolled his eyes at her and said, what are you thinking about? Bai Qing was also laughing on the side, looked at Chen Lian and said, okay, don't make trouble with her, go back and rest. Let's go. Chen Lian jumped out of bed, pulled Bai Qing and went out. Ji-fa snorted and curled her lips in dissatisfaction, bitch man and woman. On the other side of Seoul, Li Yingxin was flipping through the brochure for the art exhibition, her eyes shining slightly as she read the introduction to Chen Lian. Yin Xin, I'm coming in. The eldest sister's voice suddenly came from outside the bedroom. Li Yingxin panicked subconsciously, but suddenly remembered that she was just reading a brochure and not secretly falling in love, so she calmed down. Li Fujian walked into the bedroom and looked at Li Yingxin, who was lying on the sofa with her legs crossed, and said dotingly, what are you looking at? Li Yingxin sat up and shouted, sister, I'm going to go to an art exhibition tomorrow. There is a very powerful artist coming to Seoul for a tour. Okay, do you want sister to go with you? Li Fujian asked with a smile. He got up and looked at the brochure on the sofa, and couldn't help but frown. Are you going to see Chen Lian's art exhibition? Li Yingxin nodded and asked curiously, does sister know him? I don't know him, he's just a scumbag. Li Fujian threw away the brochure, looked at Li Yingxin and said, you'd better not go to his art exhibition. Li Yingxin frowned and asked, why? He is a very powerful artist. But he is not a good person, Li Fujian said lightly. But if you really want to go, I will accompany you. Oh well. Li Yingxin reluctantly compromised. She didn't understand why her sister would call Chen Lian a scumbag, even though he was obviously a very good artist. Li Fujian's expression turned cold after chatting with Li Yingxin for a while. Through the conversation just now, she vaguely felt that Li Yingxin was curious about Chen Lian. This was not a sign. A scumbag like Chen Lian must be good at seducing women, so Li Yingxin can't be allowed to get close to him. Li Fujian couldn't help but sigh when he thought of Li Yingxin, who had been so well protected since he was a child. He was too naive. Early the next morning, Chen Lian got up early. He felt full of energy and even boxed in the room. Bo Qing sat by the bed and watched Chen Lian boxing. He felt it was even more beautiful than the martial arts stars in the movies. The Bagwazang routine is still very enjoyable to watch, but in actual practice it is very inferior. Kung Fu is never unrestrained and freehand. There is a huge difference between movies and reality. After Chen Lian finished boxing, he wiped the sweat from his forehead and suddenly had the idea of making a Kung Fu movie. It would be a pity not to film with such a good body and good body. Chen Lian took a sip of water and turned to look at Bo Qing and asked, "What do you think of me making a kung fu movie?" Bai Qing thought for a while and said, "Very good, but you'd better go take a shower quickly. We have an exhibition today." "Okay, let's go now." Chen Lian smiled and went to the bathroom. An hour later, Chen Lian and his party appeared at the National Museum of Korea. This is the largest museum in South Korea, but it is much shabby compared to the museum Chen Lian went to before. Most of the collections in this museum are local works of art. How many works of art can there be in Korea, and how high the artistic content can be? There is absolutely no qualification to compare with other world-class museums. However, the museum's support for Chen Lian is still considerable, and a large exhibition hall was specially set aside for Chen Lian. Chen Lian walked among the works of art and glanced at the time with some confusion. It was almost time for the exhibition to begin. Why was there not a single tourist outside? Chen Lian asked the museum staff who just ran over, "Is today a special day? Why hasn't anyone come to visit yet?" The staff of the museum immediately said politely, "It will not be open to the public for the first hour. There are very important guests coming to visit." Chen Lian couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said with an unhappy expression, "I'll be in seclusion for an hour. Why didn't anyone notify me in advance? I have spent money to hold an exhibition here. It can be postponed by an hour." The key point is that the museum has not notified it in advance. If I had known about it, I would not have come so early. The staff member bowed apologetically and said, "I'm sorry, we also received a temporary notice and we will open normally in an hour." Chen Lian said helplessly, "Okay, what big shot wants to visit your museum and actually delays the opening of the museum for an hour?" "They are distinguished guests of Samsung Group." After the staff explained, they said apologetically, "They are here to visit your art exhibition. I'm sorry to inform you at such short notice." Chen Lian couldn't help but laugh. "When you saw my exhibition, you postponed the opening of the museum without saying hello to only accept you plutocrats." At first, Chen Lian thought he was visiting the National Museum of Central China, so the entire museum was postponed for 1 hour. But now it seems that this is not the case at all. Chen Lian was really angry and laughed. He turned to look at the staff member and said, "I will be closed all day today and will not receive anyone. Our cooperation ends here." After saying that, Chen Lian called on his team to prepare for dismantling the exhibition, and went directly to Tokyo to hold the last show before going home to celebrate the new year. The museum staff felt numb when they saw Chen Lian like this. Why should he be so grand? The staff of these museums really don't understand Chen Lian's thoughts. That's Samsung. Do you really not care at all? Chen Lian really didn't care. If he had the ability, he would let Samsung beat him to death. It pissed him off and he had to mess with Samsung. Today's Samsung is already on the verge of collapse under the impact of the financial crisis, and Chen Lian never expected that it would make such a big statement. The debt is as high as $18 billion. If the next step is not stable, it may be eaten up by everyone at any time. Samsung's current situation is very bad. It should be said that the whole of South Korea is very bad. The whole of South Korea is about to be sold. Is there still one Samsung left? However, Chen Lian also knew that Samsung would be reborn from the ashes in 2 years. Li Jiangzi was still very capable and had a sophisticated vision. He began to readjust the group's layout in 1993. As long as this wave of financial crisis is overcome, Samsung's path to true rise will be unstoppable. Chen Lian is very clear about Samsung's future, but that doesn't mean he will retreat in the face of Samsung's strength. "You are awesome, just don't mess with me. If I get really anxious, it doesn't matter whether you are a 3-star or a 6-star. Mr. Chen, please don't move the exhibition." The director of the museum ran over and begged Chen Lian anxiously. Chen Lian glanced at him and said, "Okay, it's open during normal hours." Other tourists can enter the museum normally. I won't withdraw. The curator said with some embarrassment, I'm very sorry, but your distinguished guest requires the venue to be cleared. Please understand. Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, they are your distinguished guests, not mine. I don't remember inviting them. After Chen Lian finished speaking, he left and began to pack things with several old tie-dye masters. Seeing Chen Lian being so tough, the museum director didn't know what to do for a moment. If he couldn't explain it to Samsung, there might be no future sponsorship. The curator of the museum glanced at the time. 2 princesses from Samsung were coming soon. One was the most favored little princess. He really didn't dare to offend her, so he could only shamelessly ask Chen Lian again. It's just that Chen Lian still said that he should either carry out the exhibition normally or dismantle it. He doesn't rely on Samsung to make a living, so why should he care about Samsung's face? Chen Lian doesn't even give the British royal family face, and he's still afraid of you, a 3-star guy. A motorcade stopped outside the museum at this time, and Li Yingxin and Li Fujian got out of the car. Li Yingxin was a little excited at this time. She took Li Fujian's hand and said, Sister, let's go quickly. The exhibition has already started. I heard that there are many people coming to see the exhibition. Li Fujian pulled Li Yingxin and said, don't worry, I have informed the museum to postpone the opening and only accept us. Ah, Li Yingxin was stunned for a moment, and then immediately realized that her sister's behavior was too overbearing, so she immediately said, Sister, this is very disrespectful. Li Fujian's mouth twitched slightly. Do you need to respect an artist? She chuckled and said, don't worry, the museum has agreed, and... When Li Yingxin heard what Li Fujian said, she had no choice but to say, okay then. However, when they entered, they found that the entire exhibition hall was in a mess. Chen Lian's people were dismantling the exhibition while museum staff stopped and pleaded. Even the director of the museum gathered around Chen Lian and begged him not to move the exhibition. Li Fujian looked at the chaotic exhibition hall, and his beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but frown. Wasn't it already informed that it would be postponed for 1 hour? Why haven't I arranged it yet? Then Li Fujian heard their conversation, and now he is not setting up the exhibition, but dismantling it. Li Yingxin also heard it, and immediately understood that Chen Lian was angry because she and her sister came over and asked to postpone the start. Li Yingxin thought about the information she had found about Chen Lian and understood what kind of person he was. At this time, she felt filled with self-blame. Li Yingxin turned to look at Li Fujian and said, Sister, let's go to the maternity visit, don't do this anymore. Li Fujian was still simmering with anger. She had always disliked scumbags like Chen Lian, but now that she had lost face again, she felt even more angry. He said to Li Yingxin seriously, no, it's too late. This is about Samsung's face. It was indeed late. If it had been earlier, it would have been too late before they came in, but they had already arrived, so they couldn't compromise casually. Li Fujian called the director of the museum and said with a frosty face, why is this happening? It's because of Chen Lian. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Li Fujian. Okay, I don't want to hear your explanation. I will only give you 5 minutes to resolve this matter within 5 minutes. The curator said angrily, okay, I'll do it now. Damn it, the curator just wants to show off. Chen Lian is also stubborn and unwilling to take a step back. Li Fujian is a domineering person here. It's really frustrating to be caught in the middle. He couldn't even understand why a young lady like you came to see an art exhibition. Why not spend money like water at home? At this time, Jifa and Chen Lian were chatting. Jifa was very supportive of Chen Lian's approach. Although artists cannot do without capital, they must not bow to capital at this time, otherwise they will be worthless. How can you maintain your unique status as an artist in the future? Artists who bow to capital are not worthy of being chased by capital. However, Jifa was also a little worried and said to Chen Lian, with this departure, cultural brands and your electronic products will not be able to enter the Korean market in the future, and your electronic products may even be suppressed. Chen Lian said nonchalantly, I had no plans to develop cultural brands in South Korea. I was afraid of being stolen. As for electronic products, we will compete with Samsung sooner or later. It makes no difference whether it is earlier or later. Jifa couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth and said, you are really confident that your likes in electronics can kill Samsung with your hand? Chen Lian said with a smile, that's not necessarily true. China will be the largest market in the world in the future. Even if I only develop domestically, I can still prosper. Chen Lian is not just talking empty words. China will be the world's largest market in the next few decades, and the huge demographic dividend will allow likes in electronics to enjoy it for decades. While Chen Lian and Jifa were chatting and laughing, the curator ran over again. After taking a look at Chen Lian, he placed his hope on Jifa. Jifa is the curator. If Jifa can be persuaded, there is still hope to retain Chen Lian. Moreover, the curator now has an idea. He first deceives Chen Lian and the others into saying that the event will proceed normally, and then takes Li Fujian and the others to visit as soon as possible. When neither party reacts, everything is over. The curator gave himself a thumbs up in his heart. Why hadn't he thought of such a good idea before? The curator looked at Jifa with a relieved smile and said, now we can proceed normally, please don't move the exhibition. Jifa turned to look at Chen Lian, with questioning eyes. Chen Lian put down the reed painting in his hand and looked at the curator with a half smile and said, are you sure? The curator felt that Chen Lian's eyes seemed to be able to see through him. He was extremely panicked, but he still managed to hold on and said, it's true. Tourists will come in to visit soon. Please return to your original state immediately and get ready to start. Chen Lian laughed, looked at the curator and said, sorry, it's too late. I have decided to move the exhibition. Please tell those two young ladies that if you want to see my exhibition, you can come to Tokyo in 3 days and I can give them a discount on their tickets. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizuda Xiaomao. Chapter 370. Chapter 358-357. Come on a see. The exhibition hall was busy, and Chen Lian leaned on a display cabinet and watched the museum director bow and apologize to Li Fujian. Tisk, tisk, Koreans have really nice waists. Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh. Jifa couldn't help but laugh out loud, feeling that Chen Lian's mouth was too poisonous. They are actually quite nice, even though they charge a lot of money for such a big exhibition hall. At the entrance of the exhibition hall, Li Fujian looked at the curator who kept bowing and apologizing. The expression on his face was extremely ugly. Li Yingxin next to her tugged at the corner of Li Fujian's clothes, but it had no effect at all. The problem Li Fujian is thinking about now is very simple. If today's incident spreads, Samsung will become a joke. In such a sensitive period of the financial crisis, any bad information may cause stock price fluctuations. Li Yingxin couldn't help but sigh. She just wanted to come to the art exhibition. Why did it end up like this? Li Yingxin turned her eyes to Chen Lian in the distance. Looking at the smile on his face, she felt a sense of ridicule. She suddenly remembered the conversation she heard in the hotel restaurant yesterday. They said at that time that they no longer wanted to be so involved with capital. Chen Lian also said that he wanted to use the identity of an anonymous person because he wanted to create without restraint. Li Yingxin thought of the news about Chen Lian and some of the things he had done, and suddenly understood why he was so resistant. As expected, artists all have their own dignity, and capital is not omnipotent. If Li Fujian knew Li Yingxin's thoughts, he would definitely sneer at him and laugh at his sister for being too naive. Which artist has grown up without the support of capital, but some people don't need to rely on capital after they become successful, and just wait for the instinctive pursuit of capital. Chen Lian watched the curator bow and apologize from a distance. He felt that it was no longer interesting, so he turned to Jifa and Bai Qing and said, "Okay, it's time to leave after we finish packing." Chen Lian took 2 steps forward, then suddenly turned back and said to Jifa, "It's best to go to Tokyo as soon as possible, otherwise I'm afraid we'll be kicked out of the hotel if we're late." Jifa smiled and said, "Don't worry, they won't do this unless they don't want to continue opening the hotel." By this time everything had been packed up and the convoy arriving to transport the artworks had arrived. Li Fujian turned around and whispered a few words to the bodyguard who came with him. After a while, the person in charge of the logistics side came over and said to Chen Lian and Jifa, "I'm sorry, our car has a problem, and we can't help you continue to transport it for the time being." Chen Lian and Jifa glanced at each other and both knew that this was Li Fujian's fault. Before they could continue to communicate with the logistics company, there were suddenly a lot of security guards in the exhibition hall. The curator came over with several security personnel and said to Chen Lian and Jifa, "I'm sorry, a cultural relic has been lost in the museum. You can't take anything away now." Chen Lian was so angry that he laughed. He really knows how to play. Chen Lian looked across the crowd and towards Li Fujian, with anger in his eyes and a stern expression that looked particularly scary. Li Fujian couldn't help but frown at Chen Lian's gaze. Chen Lian's gaze just now reminded her of her father. Just as harsh and oppressive. Li Fujian didn't understand why Chen Lian's eyes were so scary. He was obviously just an artist, but how could he have the aura of a superior person? In a sense, the reborn are no different from gods, except that some can only predict the future, while others can use the information of the future to turn the world upside down. Chen Lian accepted the security search with a cold face. There were so many people in the entire team, so it was obvious what the search meant. Li Fujian is embarrassing himself. After the body search was over, Chen Lian and others prepared to leave. When he met Li Fujian at the entrance of the exhibition hall, Chen Lian stopped and Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian with his chin raised, like a victorious black swan. Chen Lian narrowed his eyes with a cold face, suddenly smiled at Li Fujian, then turned and left. "The eldest princess likes to play, so play with her." Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian's leaving figure and thought of his smile just now, and suddenly felt a bad feeling in his heart. "Sister, why are you doing this?" Li Yingxin looked at Li Fujian angrily. She blamed herself very much. If she hadn't come to see the exhibition, such a thing would not have happened. Before Li Fujian could speak, Li Yingxin ran towards Chen Lian and chased after him. Mr. Chen Li Yingxin ran after him and ran in front of Chen Lian, saying very apologetically, "I didn't expect to cause you so much trouble. I'm sorry." Chen Lian stopped and looked at her. After looking at her carefully for a while, he said, "You don't need to say sorry to me. You are not the one who should say it." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he left. Li Yingxin looked at his leaving figure and pursed her lips, feeling aggrieved. How did things become like this? Jifa, who was leaving in the car on the other side, pulled Chen Lian and said with a smile, "You were very gentleman just now. I just said you have no resistance to beautiful women." "Nonsense." Chen Lian rolled his eyes and said, "I don't have such a good temper towards Li Fujian. I just don't like the person." Jifa snorted and said, "That's not necessarily the case. It depends on what happens next." Chen Lian put his hands behind his head and said calmly, "There are many ways. You can lend me a few $100 million first, and I will make Samsung's stock price plummet in minutes." Jifa was stunned for a moment and touched Chen Lian's forehead and said, "Are you awake? Who gave you the illusion that I have hundreds of millions?" Chen Lian clapped his fingers and said, "If you sell the paintings your father left you, sell the winery, and sell your house, you can definitely make up 1 billion. Roll." "Okay. After Chen Lian returned to the hotel, he locked himself in the room and started making phone calls. When the touring exhibition was challenged, I immediately contacted Lin Fangmu. If there was any difficulty, I would contact the organization. However, if the official intervenes, there will be no results for a while. Chen Lian doesn't want to slowly waffle, he wants to teach this little girl like Li Fujian a lesson. The stock price is crumbling due to the financial crisis. He, we will make you feel sick even if we try to sell everything. Chen Lian immediately called China. The factory had a lot of funds accumulated at the end of the year. It could be used temporarily. It could be converted into US dollars to raise 1 or 2 billion. It is very dangerous to use so much money to smash Samsung's stock price, but it is definitely impossible to lose money. If you are exhausted, you will be bitten for a while. However, the specific operation needs to be communicated with Mr. Tang. He is a professional financial talent, and he is definitely better than Chen Lian, who is a dabbler. When Xiao Linmu received a call from Chen Lian asking for money, he immediately became furious and shouted into the phone, "What did you say? You want 200 million US dollars? You want to build a rocket?" He cursed in Beijing dialect, and the second uncle was really angry. Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh, and said seriously and solemnly, "Second uncle, I borrowed 200 million, and I will repay you 220 million after the year. This matter is very important, and I am not joking. No. I don't have so much money. This is all for next year's payment. And where can I get you so much foreign exchange? Then 100 million. Get out. You loser. Dot. It's really hard to get money, uncle, but no matter how hard it is, you still have to get it." Chen Lian persevered and called Xiao Linmu again, telling him the situation in detail, and repeatedly promised that he would only borrow it for 1 month. After 1 month, he would pay it back regardless of whether it was successful or not. If he didn't go back, next year he would live in the factory and make screws to make money. Screw. Do you know what a screw looks like? Xiao Linmu cursed angrily, paused and said, "You should consult your financial advisor first and let him talk to me. I have to think about it." "Okay. Just wait a moment." Chen Lian hung up the phone after saying that and called Mr. Tang. It is difficult to do this kind of thing. After Chen Lian communicated with Mr. Tang for a long time, he reluctantly agreed that it could be done, but if he wanted to do it, he would have to bring in more capital. Samsung is like an elephant to Chen Lian. If it is stretched to death, it will be like a kitten that has just learned to walk. However, if there are too many kittens, the injured elephant will be scratched by the cat's claws. After Chen Lian communicated with Mr. Tang on the phone for more than an hour, they agreed that he would first come up with a plan to convince Xiao Linmu, and after receiving the funds, he would bring the money and team to Seoul. But even so, Chen Lian felt that it was better to be safer, so he called Chen Shifen again. Business wars sometimes involve public opinion. Chen Lian called Chen Shifen just to get some negative news about Samsung. The current situation is so sensitive that even the slightest disturbance is enough for Samsung to drink from it. It is difficult to release negative news in South Korea, but other places will not tolerate Samsung. Mr. Tang, who was far away in Xiangjiang, looked at Chen Shifen, who suddenly came to his home, and asked without any surprise, "Is Lian planning to short Samsung?" Chen Shifen nodded and couldn't help but said, "Lian has gone crazy, why are you still fooling around with him?" Mr. Tang smiled and said, "The risk is high, but the opportunity is rare. I have increased my clients a lot during this period. I have made a lot of money in South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. I have sufficient funds in my hands, so I am not completely without opportunities." Mr. Tang rubbed his eyebrows and said, "And I don't intend to do what Lian said. South Korea's financial market is my goal. Samsung is just incidental. The current stock market is like dominoes. We just need to do it behind the scenes, just give it a push and it'll be fine. Chen Shifen looked at him seriously and asked, "Are you sure you have a chance?" "I'm sure, after all, I'm not the only one eyeing South Korea. International financial speculators are all watching. I'm just one of the wolves at best." After Mr. Tang took a sip of coffee to refresh himself, he couldn't help but said, "This is the general trend. It cannot be reversed by one person. South Korea is really going to end." Chen Shifen was silent. She didn't understand this very well. She had listened to Chen Lian's trick before and gave some of the money to Mr. Tang to make a profit. Things were developing so fast now that she couldn't see the situation clearly. Mr. Tang looked at Chen Shifen and said, "Shifen, do you know what my biggest feeling is recently?" Chen Shifen shook her head and waited for his answer. Mr. Tang knocked on the table and said, "Lian's judgment of every stage of the financial crisis is extremely accurate. Although the details are unclear, his judgment of the general trend is too accurate. I even doubted whether Saras had given him the news. In other words, he can foresee the future." Chen Shifen, do you want to listen to what you are saying? See the future? Why didn't you say that Chen Lian traveled through time like Xiang Xiaolong? Forget it, I won't advise you anymore. Chen Shifen sighed, feeling that Chen Lian was crazy, and Mr. Tang was also crazy. No, those who engage in finance are all lunatics, and they have made so much money recently, they have already gone crazy. Chen Shifen looked at Mr. Tang and said seriously, "But there is one thing that is very important. Lian doesn't understand this. You must take good care of it and don't mess around, otherwise you will get burned. I know, he's just a teleprompter and a bank card in my eyes." Chen teleprompter does not understand the detailed operations, but many things are similar. As long as the general direction is okay, the rest can be left to professionals. The lyrics have been written for you. How you sing is up to you. If you can't sing well, let's go to the factory to hammer screws together. 2 days later, Mr. Tang came to South Korea with people and money. This time Mr. Tang brought $300 million in funds, of which 150 million belonged to other customers, 120 million belonged to Chen Lian, and the remaining what fell was his own. In the end, Chiao Linmu failed to get that much foreign exchange, only over 90 million. At this time, domestic foreign exchange reserves were still very tight. Chiao Linmu was able to get so much money only because he spent a lot of effort and favors and had a guaranteed period. The face of Leixin, a large taxpayer, was immediately used up. After Mr. Tang arrived in Seoul, he met Chen Lian secretly and then left. After all, he came to steal the house, so it was better to be sneaky. In the next few days, Chen Lian paid attention to the Korean securities market every day. The first thing he did when he got up every morning was to read the newspaper. Why hasn't there been any movement? I was going to mock Li Fujian for being such a little bitch. Chen Lian smacked his lips regretfully. Ji-Fa rolled her eyes at him and said, "You are just a financial idiot, and you still dare to play such a big game. How can such a thing happen so quickly? Just wait a few days." Bo Qing sat aside and suddenly said, "Lian, if you lose all this money, will you go bankrupt? Will your good sisters still be willing to follow you?" "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." Bai Qing couldn't help but think that if Chen Lian went bankrupt, none of his good sisters would be left, and he would probably be the only one left by his side. "It seems that bankruptcy is quite good, I have some expectations." Chen Lian didn't know that Bai Qing secretly hoped that he would go bankrupt, and was thinking of calling Mr. Tang to ask about the situation. But before he even made the call, his cell phone rang first. I didn't recognize the number, but Chen Lian got through anyway. As soon as the call was connected, there was a burst of incomprehensible cursing coming from the other end of the phone. Although Chen Lian couldn't understand Korean, he still understood the last sentence of Aksaba. Chen Lian, who was dumbfounded after being scolded, suddenly realized that it couldn't be Li Fujian on the other end of the phone, right? So Chen Lian asked tentatively, Li Fujian. It's me. Chen Lian, you. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 371. Chapter 359-358. The princess can also massage. You have no quality and you are still a princess. Chen Lian hung up the phone decisively, crossed his legs and drank coffee in a good mood. Li Fujian's phone number, Ji Fa came over and asked curiously. Chen Lian nodded and said with a smile, they probably found Mr. Tang, and then they found me. Ji Fa chuckled and said, if you find out, you can find out. What can she do? Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, ignore her, I'll call Mr. Tang and ask how the situation is. Li Fujian's phone call indicated that Mr. Tang had already taken action, but he didn't know the specific situation. Chen Lian called Mr. Tang and after asking about the situation, he almost understood. I haven't taken action for so many days. One is to understand the specific situation, and the other is to wait for the funds to be in place. After all, so much money will not be available in a short time. Speaking of which, it is thanks to Mr. Tang that we can get so much money. Although domestic foreign exchange controls have been relaxed a lot since 1996, they are still very strict. It is difficult to get that much money without going around in circles. Companies and individuals can apply to use foreign exchange to invest overseas, but the approval procedures are very cumbersome. It is still very difficult to exchange for so much foreign exchange through overseas investment channels. Qiao Linmu was able to successfully obtain so much money with the help of Mr. Tang and his clients in Xiangjiang. First it was Hong Kong dollars, and then it was converted into US dollars in a circle in Hong Kong, which was a big circle. After the funds arrived yesterday, Mr. Tang took action. However, he did not take action directly against Samsung. Instead, he stirred up trouble in the Korean securities market. After a large amount of funds entered, the depreciation of the Korean won accelerated. It had an impact on many branches of Samsung, which aroused their vigilance and started investigation. Chen Lian was not very clear about the twists and turns inside, but Mr. Tang explained it so clearly to Chen Lian, and he was playing the piano to others. However, Mr. Tang also said that so many things were possible because, under pressure from the United States, South Korea was about to completely liberalize its financial market. Chen Lian knows this. When the International Monetary Fund and South Korea reach all aid agreements, foreign capital can control Korean companies up to 100%. Now South Korea has surrendered, but the aid will not come so quickly. Before that, it needs to absorb enough blood. South Korea's financial crisis will not end until March next year, when it completely surrenders. Now is the time when international speculators are madly attacking the South Korean won. After March next year, Wall Street will indirectly control South Korea's economic lifeline through acquisitions, mergers, and secondary markets. Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and other companies have all ended up working for the United States. After being acquired, the financial crisis was over. I don't know whether these surviving chaebols should laugh or cry. Anyway, Daewoo Group, the largest chaebol in South Korea, did not even resist the first wave of attacks. Its assets of $30 billion were already bankrupt. However, Lee Kun-hee of Samsung is still very powerful. Although more than 50% of the equity was taken away, he still has control over Samsung. In the end, the Lee Kun-hee family had very few shares left in their hands, but they still gained control through other Korean institutions and corporate holdings. Strong people are always strong. Chen Lian knows this very well. He doesn't expect to have a big blow to Samsung this time. He just wants to make more money by the way because he can't bear to swallow it. The United States is constantly withdrawing US dollars, and South Korea's financial market is really in chaos. Mr. Tang and others are not the only ones who are fishing in troubled waters. Many foreign capitals are fishing in troubled waters and sucking blood secretly. Chen Lian actually never thought that he would be involved in such a big thing. After all, he was just a bad painter who didn't know anything about international events or financial crises. If it weren't for financial talents like Mr. Tang, Chen Lian would not have waded into such muddy waters. In Seoul's securities market, there was a cry at this time. Some time ago, the exchange ratio between the Korean won and the US dollar reached 1737.60:1. Now it is in dire straits. The International Monetary Fund will not help South Korea a second time. Now there is another strong fluctuation, which is simply scaring Korean investors and companies to death. Lee Fuchhen was being scolded at home at this time. This matter was easy to figure out, and it was easy to find out the huge flow of funds. Lee Fuchhen was so scolded by Lee Jiangzi that he could not lift his head. There was a red mark on his originally fair face. He didn't know who had hit him. Lee Fuchhen herself was not taken seriously. She joined the company last year and was just an ordinary employee. No one in the company even knew her identity. She had worked at the grassroots level for less than 2 years and was still struggling at the grassroots level. If you want to become the first female president of Samsung, you have to struggle for more than 10 years before you get the chance, and you have to find a way not to be married off. Lee Fuchhen felt gloomy at this time. She really didn't expect that a small artist would dare to take action against Samsung, and it was still in an environment like the financial crisis. What Lee Fuchhen couldn't understand even more was where Chen Lian got so much money. Well, she admitted that according to the investigation results, Chen Lian was richer than her. Not to mention the current financial crisis, the shares in her hands were only a pitiful amount before the financial crisis, with a valuation of just over $10 million. Lee Yingson was so favored that she only received $200 million in shares in a few years. That was even when Samsung's market value increased significantly. Lee Fuchhen doesn't even want to calculate his current net worth. Anyway, it is still continuing to decline. Maybe it will drop to nothing tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Samsung's debt ratio has reached 350%, and it is now in contact with Wall Street capital. However, if such a situation happens, another large piece of flesh will be bitten off. This is also the reason why Lee Jiangzi is so angry. Who would have thought that the person who influenced him in the end would be an artist? Who is an artist with so much money and so much courage? What makes Lee Jiangzi even more angry is that Lee Fuchhen didn't even investigate his opponent's situation. Lee Fuchhen felt aggrieved. The situation that day was just a moment of anger. He had no time to investigate Chen Lian's situation. He just wanted to seize his artwork and make him bow his head. This kind of thing is too common among chaebols. You go and resolve this matter. This is a critical moment for negotiations with Wall Street capital. You must not be affected by anything again. Lee Jiangzi looked at Lee Fuchhen with a cold face. There was no trace of a father's love for his daughter in his eyes, only a cold stare. The International Monetary Fund's aid is only over $50 billion. This is aid to the entire South Korea, and it is not a one-time grant, let alone unconditional aid. What is accurate is that this money is the money they use to acquire Korean companies. How much assistance Samsung can get means how much it will cost. Originally, I could still argue, but now I have to pay an unknown price for being messed with by Mr. Tang. Samsung now has $18 billion in debt, and its original valuation was only $10 billion. Now it's really worse. President, I'm sorry, I'll deal with it now, give me a day. Lee Fuchhen treats Lee Jiangzi not like a son treating his father, but more like an employee. After Lee Fuchhen left, Lee Zaiyang said angrily, Fuchhen is so shameless. She must not be allowed to interfere in the group's affairs in the future. Li Jiangzi glanced at his son with contempt and said with a cold face, "Contact Morgan immediately. I will meet with them tonight." Seeing Li Jiangzi's expression, Li Jiayong immediately put away all his anger and said respectfully, "Okay, President." The powerful and ambitious people in the Li family are all worried at this time. Only Li Yingxin, who has just entered college, feels nothing in her bedroom, just feeling depressed with the sorrow of a girl. She didn't know that Chen Lian had started to fight back because of what happened that day, but she was worried about how to get her sister to stop targeting Chen Lian. In the Shilla Hotel, Chen Lian was enjoying the spa program from France in the water bar. Suddenly he felt that the technician behind him had slowed down his strength. He lay there and said in a muffled voice, "Take a little more strength." Li Fujian took a deep breath and waved to the technician to let her out. The technician girl withdrew her massage hand, bowed to Li Fujian and turned around to go out. Chen Lian frowned, not understanding what happened. "The service was very good the last few times I came here. What's the situation like today?" Just when Chen Lian was about to turn over and ask what was going on, Li Fujian spoke. "Mr. Chen, I am Li Fujian, and I am here to apologize." Chen Lian, who was about to get up, lay there and pulled up the towel on his body to cover half of his exposed buttocks. "It's so embarrassing, why is this bitch Li Fujian not polite at all?" Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian's actions, and his originally tense face relaxed inexplicably. He felt a little funny, but also a little helpless. If she had a choice, she wouldn't come to Chen Lian at this time. It was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If the conflict with Chen Lian was not resolved tonight, she would definitely lose all opportunities to stay in the family. Recently, her mother had arranged for her to start contacting various potential marriage partners, and with the emergence of this incident, if she didn't handle it well, she would have nothing to do with the Samsung Group in the future. Li Fujian thought of this, put away the faint smile in his heart, and took the initiative to step forward and put his hand on Chen Lian's back. "Mr. Chen, I was too rude before. I apologize to you." Chen Lian was stunned for a moment when Li Fujian pressed him up, and his back subconsciously tensed up, but he quickly realized it and relaxed and lay down. What's wrong with Princess Samsung? She doesn't have money of her own yet. At least he can now spend hundreds of millions of dollars, which is worth 1% of Samsung. Li Fujian estimates that even 1,000th of it is important in Samsung. Not to any extent. Is Samsung powerful? It is very powerful, but who would be afraid when you are terminally ill? Samsung itself has too much time to take care of itself. Before he knew it, Chen Lian was also a wealthy boss. Although the hundreds of millions of funds were borrowed from the factory, strictly speaking, he still had half of it, right? Chen Lian lay there enjoying Li Fujian's massage without saying anything, as if he really regarded her as a massage technician. Li Fujian was very anxious, but he also knew that being anxious was useless. He just said in a gentle tone, "Mr. Chen, the International Monetary Fund has provided assistance to South Korea. The securities market will rebound soon. If you continue to do this, it will be very risky, and I also know that your industry in China is VCD. If Samsung enters the Chinese market and competes with you, your capital chain will definitely be broken." Chen Lian couldn't help but laugh. At this time, does Samsung still have the intention to develop VCDs? Sony can blow your head off. Sony is also counting on these assembly plants in the Chinese market to buy their chips to save itself. China's VCD market is growing rapidly every year, and it is a market worth tens of billions. Chen Lian's original plan was to cooperate with Sony after making MP3. Anyway, if he didn't deal with Samsung, he would rely on Sony to slowly compete with them in the future. Forget about anything else. Does Samsung still have the time and money to compete with Lixin in the Chinese market? Li Fujian listened to Chen Lian's smile and couldn't help but intensify the movements of his hands, making you laugh. If Chen Lian retorts a few words, Li Fuchen won't be angry. At least he will be willing to talk, so that there will be a discussion. Otherwise, she will not say such loopholes to arouse Chen Lian's desire to talk. But Chen Lian just laughed there, as if he was laughing at her childishness. Li Fuchen was so angry that his teeth itched, and the movements of his hands became a little heavier. However, Chen Lian did not feel pain, but felt quite comfortable. Princess Sangxing, although the massage technique was very ordinary, the psychological feeling was completely different. Li Fuchen said several more words, but Chen Lian ignored him, and the room suddenly became quiet. Li Fuchen looked at Chen Lian's broad shoulders and narrow waist, his mind slowly wandered a little, and the movements of his hands became gentle subconsciously. Chen Lian suddenly felt like he was getting a gentle massage, and couldn't help coughing, which immediately made Li Fuchen stop. She retracted her hand, wiped it on the towel, sat aside and looked at Chen Lian and said, "Mr. Chen, Samsung will not fall so easily, and Wall Street will not let Samsung fall. Everything you do now, we will all suffer retaliation from Samsung in the future. Am I worth it for revenge? This is not what a businessman should do." Chen Lian moved his neck, sat up, wrapped himself in a bath towel, glanced at Li Fuchen and said, "First of all, I'm not a businessman, and secondly, I think it's worth it." Li Fuchen frowned and looked at Chen Lian and said, "I'm here to apologize to you now. If you have other conditions, you can put them forward. I'm sorry, things are out of my control now. It's too late for you to apologize." Chen Lian stood up and walked to the clothes rack. He stopped and turned around to look at Li Fuchen and said, "I'm going to change clothes. Are you sure you still want to sit here?" Li Fuchen suddenly stood up and looked at him and said, "Mr. Chen, I am here to talk to you now. If I fail, my brother will come. He will not be as disciplined as me." Chen Lian laughed and said, "You chaebols are really arrogant. Will you really let your brother take over? Miss Princess, you don't want to get married either, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 372. Chapter 360-359. Oh, scumbag. People can be very arrogant sometimes, and Chen Lian is very arrogant now. To be precise, it expanded. Li Fuchen felt that Chen Lian was really arrogant. $100 million was a lot of money, but it was of no use when money was abundant in this world. Although Samsung's valuation is only 10 billion, Samsung's energy is more than 10 billion. Even though it is now heavily in debt, it is still not something that can be blackmailed by someone who can come up with 100 million in capital. Li Fuchen suddenly calmed down, looked at Chen Lian and said, "You are stupider than I thought." Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, "I admit that I am not a businessman and I don't understand the operations of the business field. However, I can afford to lose 100 million, and I can also afford to lose Alixon Electronics, but can Samsung do it?" Chen Lian really didn't care. Even if he lost money now, he would still have a chance to make money back in the next 2 years. The Spring Festival of 1997 has not yet arrived. There are so many opportunities to make money in China. If you invest in a few internet companies, you will become a billionaire in the future. Even if you don't invest in the internet, there are many opportunities to make money. China is full of gold now, and Chen Lian never worries that he will fail. What's so scary about failure is that you have to start all over again. It's just that others don't know where Chen Lian's confidence lies, and they only think Chen Lian is stupid and arrogant. That's what Li Fuchen thought. She couldn't help but shook her head and said, "It's not good for you to continue like this. You can indeed make a lot of money by taking advantage of this opportunity, but you will offend Samsung and you will be unable to move forward in the future. You're right, but again, I don't care. Chen Lian sat opposite Li Fujian wrapped in a bath towel, looked at her and said, you should have seen my news. I am an artist. Just want to be happy. Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian with a serious face and said, no need to talk. Chen Lian took a sip of tea and looked at Li Fujian with a smile. After a while, he said with a smile, we can talk, but it depends on your sincerity. Li Fujian felt happy, but suddenly he had a bad feeling in his heart. Chen Lian was making such a big fuss, and the conditions he proposed must not be simple. But now, she can only bite the bullet and go on, otherwise she will really not be able to gain a foothold in Samsung in the future. Tell me your conditions. Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian and asked in a deep voice. Chen Lian smiled and raised his eyebrows and asked, is Ms. Li 27 years old this year? Yes. Li Fujian didn't know what Chen Lian was planning. Seeing that he only had a bath towel on his body, he always thought of something bad in his mind. She had seen too many such things in Korea, especially Chen Lian's playful eyes, which made her feel like a little white rabbit that had been delivered to her door, and would be eaten up by Chen Lian in one bite. Chen Lian held the teacup and turned it around in his hand. Looking at Li Fujian's nervous eyes, he smiled and asked, Miss Li is a talented student who graduated from Harvard, right? Li Fujian nodded and just waited for Chen Lian's next words. Does Miss Li have a chance to become the heir of Samsung? Chen Lian put away his teasing mentality and said seriously, you should be ignored in the family now. Li Fujian's face darkened. Many people knew about this, so there was nothing to hide. So he pulled back his hair and said calmly, that's true. This has nothing to do with Mr. Chen, right? What are your conditions? Chen Lian put down the cup in his hand and said, I actually admire you very much. I admire the Li Fujian who dared to marry a security guard and risk his life's happiness to stay in Samsung, but now Li Fujian is not so determined. Li Fujian's eyes flashed with confusion. He really couldn't figure out what Chen Lian meant by the sentence. Do you admire yourself so you deliberately cause trouble for yourself? What does he want to do? Li Fujian's mind was full of questions now. He looked directly at Chen Lian and said, Mr. Chen, what exactly do you want to say? I said, I admire Miss Li very much, so I want to cooperate with you, Chen Lian said with a smile. Li Fujian frowned and became even more puzzled. He always suspected that Chen Lian's so-called appreciation and cooperation were not serious. When he thinks of Chen Lian's tidbits, it is difficult for Li Fujian to regard Chen Lian as a normal partner. But looking at Chen Lian's face and his strong figure, Li Fujian hesitated inexplicably, and it seemed that it might not be impossible to consider. Chen Lian stopped talking in circles, looked at Li Fujian and said, you don't have any advantage in Samsung compared with your brother Li Ziyang. Why don't you consider developing your own career? You are just a small employee of Samsung now. Want to climb up to the top? How long does it take to be the president, and how long does it take to become the heir to control Samsung? Li Fujian had a vague guess in his heart, but he was not sure yet. He shook his head and said, I don't understand what you mean. What I mean is very simple. How about cooperating with me and working for me? The conditions I will give you will definitely be more than what you get at Samsung. Although Li Fujian guessed what Chen Lian meant, he still didn't expect that he really thought so. How could he dare to say such a thing? Did you drink too much? Chen Lian shrugged, picked up the teacup and said, I drank tea and I am very awake. If Li Fujian continues on her original life trajectory, she will eventually be worth more than $3 billion, but is it really a lot for a group as huge as Samsung? Not as rich as her mother, let alone his brother. And it took her many years and sacrifices to get these more than $3 billion. With this kind of effort and energy, it would be much easier to start your own business without preparation. With Samsung as the backing, it is not difficult to succeed, But sometimes people's eyes are blinded, and how do they get out of the whirlpool of fighting for family property? Chen Lian knew that Li Fujian didn't believe him and didn't care about her attitude. He just smiled and said, "In 1994, I was still a poor boy living in a courtyard, and now I have let the princess of Samsung give me a massage." Li Fujian blushed and glared at Chen Lian angrily, but he quickly realized the point of Chen Lian's words. In more than 3 years, Chen Lian has achieved his current wealth. Li Fujian really couldn't react. When he read Chen Lian's information before, he subconsciously ignored this and only focused on his scandals and artistic achievements. Now that I think about it carefully, I realize that this guy actually made so much money just by playing around. After this financial crisis is over, his wealth may double. For a moment, Li Fujian couldn't tell whether Chen Lian was pretending to be stupid or if he was really stupid. How did such an irrational person make such money? Li Fujian carefully recalled Chen Lian's information and suddenly realized something. He looked at him and said, "Your uncle earned that money. It has nothing to do with you." Chen Lian nodded and said, "That's right, but you should have read the information about how my uncle went from a small business owner of home appliances to a successful person with annual sales of more than 2 billion yuan. It's 260 million in US dollars. How much is it based on the current Korean won exchange rate?" Before Chen Lian counted on his fingers, Li Fujian said in a deep voice, 4,500 billion won. 4 trillions, Korean won is really worthless. Chen Lian smacked his lips and looked at Li Fujian and asked, "Do you still think I drank too much?" Li Fujian shook his head and said, "Your success is just luck, because of the rise of the Chinese market and demographic dividend, and you don't have any technology, you are just a processor." Chen Lian smiled and said, "That's right, but it won't be the case soon." Li Fujian was a little curious, but he still resisted asking. He wouldn't tell anyone if he asked him at this time, and if he asked, he would most likely make this guy yell. Chen Lian sighed, feeling very boring. Li Fujian didn't know how to praise him at all. Chen Lian stopped joking, looked at Li Fujian and said, "I can give up my current activities temporarily, but you have to work for me for 3 years. How about that? If MP3 is successfully developed, it will no longer be something that Jiao Linmu can do. More professional talents will be needed to bring MP3 to the international market." Chen Lian didn't expect Li Fujian at first, but it happened too suddenly, and the current situation made him think of this possibility. But he was not sure that Li Fujian would agree. After all, one was a small electronics factory in China and the other was an international conglomerate, Samsung. It doesn't matter even if Li Fujian refuses. Chen Lian just thinks that her abilities are pretty good. She can still gain a foothold in Samsung despite the pressure of Li Jiangzi and Li Jiayong. Her abilities are certainly impressive. It's just that with such a good ability, it's a pity to only think about family feuds. The era of the internet is coming, and the era of mobile phone communication is also about to rise. Chen Lian yawned, looked at Li Fujian and said, "You think about it, I need to take a rest. It's a very simple condition. You shouldn't need to think about it for too long." Li Fujian smelled the faint aroma in the room and felt that his thinking was not clear. He pinched his fingers subconsciously and said, "You can change the conditions." Chen Lian yawned and said, "Then will you marry me?" Li Fujian felt as if he had heard wrongly, and his little head was full of question marks. "Look, if you don't want to be replaced by me, you might as well work for me. I just want the eldest princess of Samsung to work for me." Chen Lian lay comfortably on the bed and pinched 2 slices of cucumber to cover his eyes. Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian like this and really wanted to give him a slap to wake him up. "If I work for you, I will completely say goodbye to the inheritance of Samsung. I am begging you now just to fight for the opportunity to stay in Samsung. Do you understand or not? Are you really a fool? How on earth did you make so much money?" Li Fujian felt that he needed to calm down, took a deep breath and walked out. After Li Fujian walked out, Chen Lian immediately sat up, took out his mobile phone and called Mr. Tang. After asking about Samsung's current situation in detail and confirming that he was taking the initiative, he asked Mr. Tang to take advantage of the situation to launch another offensive. Then he hung up the phone and lay back down. In the end, he did not forget to cover his eyes with cucumbers. Li Fujian, who came out for air, is a little confused now. Chen Lian took advantage of Samsung at a critical moment, which is really shameless. Except for this shameless businessman, he looks like an idiot in other aspects. How could he agree to his conditions? But before she could think about how to talk to Chen Lian later, her cell phone rang. She took it out and saw that it was Li Jiayong's number. She wanted to hang up the phone, but she didn't dare, so she could only pick up the phone. How are you talking to him now? Why have a large number of stocks been released again? The president is going to meet with Morgan's people in the evening, and this matter must be resolved before then, otherwise you will be dead. After Li Ziyang finished speaking, he hung up the phone without waiting for Li Fujian to answer. Li Fujian closed his eyes irritably, holding the phone with his white fingers until his knuckles turned white. This matter must be resolved as soon as possible. Li Fujian glanced at the time. It was almost 5 o'clock, and he was running out of time. Li Fujian turned around and went back to the private room. When he saw Chen Lian lying there sleeping leisurely, he couldn't help but feel angry. I agree to your terms. Chen Lian immediately took off the cucumbers from his eyes with joy, looked at Li Fujian and said, really agreed. Li Fujian took a deep breath and said, I will marry you. You immediately cancel your attack on Samsung in the securities market. What? What the hell? Chen Lian even forgot to speak English and spoke directly in Chinese. It was Li Fujian's words that made him suspect that his ears had misheard. Although Li Fujian didn't understand what Chen Lian said, he still guessed it. He looked at Chen Lian and said seriously, I said I would marry you, but you must marry me. Bah! What are you thinking of? Let's play while we're at it. Chen Lian didn't care whether Li Fujian could understand Chinese or not, he spoke in dialect. Li Fujian tilted his head and looked at Chen Lian. He didn't understand what he said, but he could tell from his expression that Chen Lian disliked him. That's just a joke. I only have one condition, help me work, otherwise I won't give up, Chen Lian said seriously. Li Fujian understood this time and couldn't help but smile. She knew that Chen Lian couldn't be serious. How could a scumbag get married? Then I can agree to your second condition, but I can't leave Samsung. Li Fujian pretended to give in, looked at Chen Lian and said, I have shown my sincerity. If you are not willing, then let's get married. Chen Lian, what the hell are you thinking of? But it's not bad to agree to the second condition, but the way of cooperation is a little more troublesome. After thinking for a while, Chen Lian looked at Li Fujian and said, since you brought it up, you must have your own ideas. Tell me your conditions. If I can accept it, this matter will end here. After Li Fujian saw Chen Lian regressing, he felt relieved. Some small tricks were indeed useful. This kind of man would definitely get confused when he talked about getting married. Hey, scumbag. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 373. Chapter 361-360. The eldest lady is almost mad to death. The aromatherapy in the crystal cup burned slowly, and the faint scent of roses filled the whole room. Chen Lian poured a cup of tea for Li Fujian and waited for her to state her conditions. Li Fujian glanced at the cup of tea, shook his head and said, the conditions will be discussed later. You should stop the activities in the securities market first, and put on your clothes. I refuse. I transferred so much money here to make money, and it's impossible to stop now. Chen Lian pulled his towel and said, I can promise you the last one. Chen Lian stood up, picked up the bathrobe and put it on, looked back at Li Fuchen and said, "But I can temporarily stop targeting companies under Samsung. The life and death of other companies has nothing to do with you." Li Fuchen nodded and said, "Okay, you call first, and then I will tell you my conditions." Chen Lian shook his head again and said, "No, I haven't seen your sincerity yet." "You?" Li Fuchen couldn't help but stood up and looked at Chen Lian and said, "What kind of sincerity do you want?" Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, "This is your problem, not mine. I can't believe you just because of your words." Li Fuchen took a deep breath, took out his phone and made a call, turning on the speakerphone. The phone was quickly connected, and Chen Lian's somewhat familiar voice came from the other end of the phone. It was the director of the museum. "Miss Li, what are your orders?" "Return Mr. Chen's works to them." After Li Fuchen finished speaking, he hung up the phone, looked at Chen Lian and said, "I can also help you contact a professional cultural relics transportation team to send your works to Tokyo. If you need if." Chen Lian lowered his head and took out his cell phone to call Jifa and asked her to take someone to receive the works. Jifa understood what Chen Lian said and asked curiously, "Aren't you doing spa treatment downstairs? Li Fuchen came to see you." "Well, you go to the museum to get the things back first, and send them directly to Tokyo today to save you a long night and a lot of dreams." "I understand, but you have to be careful. That Li Fuchen doesn't look simple. Don't be cowardly." Before Jifa could finish speaking, Chen Lian hung up the phone and thought of himself as someone else. Li Fuchen looked at Chen Lian and said, "Now do you see my sincerity?" "Sorry, no, those things are mine." Chen Lian glanced at the time on his phone and said to Li Fuchen, "You still have half an hour. If you delay any longer, it might be too late." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Actually, I'm looking forward to you being kicked out of Samsung by Li Jiayong. In this case, maybe you won't be entangled in whether to work for me." Li Fuchen looked at Chen Lian and became more serious. He felt that he finally saw some merit in him. Although it was ruthlessly directed at him, it at least showed that he was calm and not that stupid. "I don't understand why you want me to work for you. Your Lixin VCD has adapted to China's brutal market environment. There is not much difference with or without me. I don't know how to express my sincerity." Chen Lian shook his head and said, "It's not VCD. VCD is already in the sunset. It can last for another 3 years at most. I came to you because I have a new project with a market worth billions of dollars." Li Fuchen's changed view on Chen Lian was pulled back again. A market of tens of dollars. Men are such egomaniacs. However, his judgment on the VCD market was correct. This was something Li Fuchen did not expect. Chen Lian gave her a very strange feeling. Sometimes she felt very smart and sometimes very stupid. Li Fuchen even doubted whether Chen Lian's IQ was the same as Schrödinger's cat. Chen Lian didn't care whether Li Fuchen believed it or not, and said directly, "You should hurry up. If you don't say whether I am willing to reconcile with you after today, I guess you will not have the chance to reconcile with me on behalf of Samsung." Li Fuchen really doesn't know what to do now. She has no leverage at all, so how can she show her sincerity? He only has a pitiful share of the group, and it is not completely his own. As for his position in the company, he is just an ordinary employee with no rights at all. At this time, Li Fuchen suddenly realized that everything he had came from his identity as the Samsung princess, but this identity still had such great limitations. Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh and said, "Forget it, I won't embarrass you. Look at you, apart from being good looking, what else can you do? You are not even as good as me, a grassroots person." Chen Lian's slightly contemptuous eyes made Li Fuchen very hurt. He was a top student of Harvard MBA. But the eldest daughter of Samsung Group. "I can give you an inside tip," Li Fuchen finally couldn't bear it any longer. He looked at Chen Lian and said quickly, "My father will meet with people from Morgan Bank tonight. The stock price will inevitably rise in the next few days. You can take advantage of this opportunity, eat more." Chen Lian raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at her and said, "You don't think I don't know, do you? I have been in trouble since the financial crisis broke out last year. I know many things better than you." Li Fuchen was slightly startled, knowing that what he said was not a lie, but her news was very timely. "But you don't know which day the stock price will be pulled back." Chen Lian chuckled, how could he not know, March 28th. But he was too lazy to explain to Li Fuchen, shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'll take it as your sincerity." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he called Mr. Tang with his mobile phone and asked him to temporarily give up his attack on Samsung's stock price. Then he glanced at Li Fuchen and told him in unskilled Cantonese that he could collect more shares of Samsung now. However, there are not many shares in the secondary market, and people on Wall Street are also harvesting them. How much they can receive depends on fate. Although Li Fuchen was deeply unhappy, he was still relieved after seeing that his goal was achieved. Moreover, Chen Lian District's acquisition of Samsung's shares would inevitably drive up the stock price. This was killing two birds with one stone. After Chen Lian chatted with Mr. Tang for a few words, he hung up the phone, looked at Li Fuchen and said, "You should be relieved now, I can also help you increase the stock price." "That's what you suppressed." Li Fuchen breathed a sigh of relief and felt much more relaxed. He looked at Chen Lian and said, "Actually, the securities market has begun to stabilize and will pick up soon. Although you have a lot of funds, but it's far from enough to see it in front of Wall Street. Taking part of the shares now is the best choice for you." Chen Lian smiled and did not deny this. He put down the phone in his hand and looked at Li Fuchen and said, "Now you can tell me how you are going to work for me." Li Fuchen said word for word, "It is impossible for me to leave Samsung." Chen Lian's face immediately turned cold, and he looked at her with cold eyes. Such a look made Li Fuchen feel a little uncomfortable. She immediately recalled the look in Li Jiangzi's eyes today. Li Fuchen explained in a panic, "I'm not breaking the contract, I mean, I can give you a job, but I have to stay at Samsung." Chen Lian's face looked better now, and he looked at her and said, "Then how are you going to work?" "Working as a clerk at Samsung while working for me." Li Fuchen nodded and shook his head and said, "After this incident, my status in the family will be affected, and I will probably be kicked out of the company. My brother will not give me a chance, so I have to burn the boat." "Then what?" "I'm going to apply to go to the Chinese branch. If I go out, my brother will probably relax his vigilance about me." Chen Lian couldn't help but nodded, thought for a moment and said, "But the greater possibility is that I want you to get married." Li Fuchen was silent for a moment, staring at Chen Lian without saying anything, but his eyes were a little strange. "Don't even think about it." Chen Lian tightened his bathrobe and couldn't help but said, "Don't put your thoughts on me. Go see if your bodyguard is suitable." "Bodyguard?" Li Fuchen was stunned for a moment, looked at Chen Lian angrily and said, "You insult me. How could I find a bodyguard?" Chen Lian glanced slightly and said that the bodyguards are all giving you face, so they should be the security guards. Seeing Chen Lian's expression, Li Fuchen couldn't help but feel angry. "What's the meaning? Am I not good enough for you? No, am I only worthy of marrying a bodyguard?" Li Fuchen found that Chen Lian seemed to really look down on him, and his self-esteem couldn't be accepted for a moment. He looked at him and said, "Have you ever thought about the possibility of becoming the owner of Samsung if you marry me? I don't know how many people want to this opportunity. Oh, unless your dad and your brother are stupid, you won't have this chance." Chen Lian felt that Li Fuchen was quite pitiful. "In order to stay in Samsung, I chose to marry a security guard. I was really willing to go out of my way." Chen Lian looked at her and said, "Don't think so much. You can have everything in your dreams. Let's think about how to get to China. It will definitely be better for you to follow me than at Samsung. When you officially join, I will tell you about my future plan of. Li Fuchen also calmed down. Seeing Chen Lian's cold look, he felt really annoyed. He didn't understand why this guy could always make him half angry. You shouldn't have gone to the museum with Yin Xian that day. If you hadn't gone, none of this would have happened. Chen Lian glanced at Li Fuchen and said, "Let's go, I want to continue the massage, or do you want to give me a massage?" A trace of embarrassment flashed in Li Fuchen's eyes. He stood up and was about to leave when he heard Chen Lian say from behind, "I'm waiting for your news. Before noon tomorrow, I want to see your appointment to China, otherwise I will continue. Even if Samsung accepts capital from Wall Street, this is still a dangerous period. Before the agreement is officially reached, Wall Street will still suppress Samsung's shares to maximize profits." After hearing what Chen Lian said, Li Fuchen was stunned for a moment and went out. However, she did not choose to go home. Instead, she called Li Jiangzi to report the situation and then turned back to find Chen Lian. She was so curious about Chen Lian, such a contradictory person, sometimes cold, sometimes soft-hearted, sometimes stupid and sometimes shrewd. She couldn't figure out what kind of person Chen Lian was, and where the arrogance deep in his eyes that looked down on everyone came from. You must know that when Samsung invested in building factories in China, when Li Jiangzi went to China for inspection, the people he received were all top-notch people. Where did he, a small upstart artist, get such confidence? When Li Fuchen pushed the door open, Chen Lian had just taken off his bathrobe and was lying on the bed. He didn't care when he heard the sound of the door opening. "Technician lady, it's not normal to be frank." Li Fuchen, who pushed the door in, was stunned when he saw the naked Chen Lian. Seeing him lying there calmly, he didn't know whether to advance or retreat for a moment, but his eyes stayed on Chen Lian's figure for a long time. By the time Li Fuchen reacted, Chen Lian had already spoken to urge him. "Hurry up and start, I have to go to dinner." Li Fuchen hesitated and walked over, stood next to Chen Lian and looked at his naked back. He blushed and covered him with a towel. However, she didn't start massaging him. Just as she was about to tell Chen Lian that the person who came was him, not the technician, he heard Chen Lian say, "Why don't you start?" Li Fuchen subconsciously put his hand up, then quickly retracted it, suppressing the shyness in his heart and said, "It's me." "Huh?" Chen Lian turned his head and looked at Li Fuchen, who was standing behind him, and said speechlessly, "Didn't you leave? You didn't drive the technician away again, did you?" Chen Lian said irritably, "I know you are plotting against me, so don't even think about marrying me." Snapped. Li Fuchen slapped Chen Lian on the buttocks and couldn't help cursing, "Are you wronged by marrying me?" After Li Fuchen finished beating Chen Lian, he realized that he was impulsive and irrational, but he couldn't help but rub it with his white fingers. It felt really good. Li Fuchen. Chen Lian thought about it angrily, but when he remembered that he was naked, he lay back and said, "You made me angry, either give me a massage now, or I'll call you now and continue smashing the dishes." "You're dreaming," Li Fuchen also said angrily. She had just pressed him a few times in order to beg for peace, and now she wanted to give him a massage. "Dream." Chen Lian snorted, reached for his mobile phone from the small shelf next to him, and shook it at Li Fuchen. "You are simply a scoundrel. I learned it from you, do you press it or not?" "No press. Miss, you don't want your father to punish you because you don't do things well." "Stop talking, I'll press." Chen Lian snorted, put away his phone and said, "I gave you a chance to leave, but you insisted on coming back. Now you know you regret it?" Li Fuchen felt that he was suffocated to death. For a moment, he wanted to die with Chen Lian. The hands pressing on Chen Lian's back used all their strength. Chen Lian hummed and said, "As for essential oils, the one who uses roses, are you a professional or not? I'm not a professional to begin with, Li Fujian said through gritted teeth. Then learn, hurry up, the service I ordered is a full body massage. Dot.